Hey guys, tonight we dive into the forgotten furnaces of Arizona's medieval past, where the air itself felt weaponized, shade was a myth, and survival wasn't just unlikely, it was laughable. Imagine waking up wrapped in animal hide, lying on a mat of reeds inside a mud-plastered room that's already 95 degrees Fahrenheit before sunrise. Outside, coyotes cry, snakes stir, and someone's coughing up desert dust like it's a morning ritual. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You are not going to make it to breakfast. The first mistake you made, you showed up in denim, or anything synthetic really. Medieval Arizona, what scholars might bundle loosely into prehistoric Southwest before European colonization, wasn't interested in your fast fashion. The sun here doesn't tan you, it roasts you. It doesn't care if your name is Ryan or Rachel, or if you think SPF 50 is enough. Without a thick coating of ash, red ochre, or bear grease, and yes, bear grease, you'd start to feel like bacon on a hot skillet before the sun even peeks over the sandstone cliffs. If you were lucky enough to wake up in a structure, it was probably made of adobe, mud mixed with straw and baked harder than your will to survive. But that heat, it never left. The walls kept it in like a vengeful memory. Windows were rare. Why let the evil spirits in, or worse, the flies? You're already dehydrated, by the way. Your lips are cracked, your eyes sting, and that weird buzzing. It's not a vibe, it's a fly, a big one. And it's decided your eyelid is its landing strip, and still, you're expected to work. That means foraging, or planting, or hauling water from a river that's not only dry but possibly haunted, depending on which elder you ask. You head outside and step directly into thorny brush. Every plant in sight seems personally offended by your presence. The mesquite tree stabs. The cholla cactus throws its needles like it heard a rumor about your attitude. Even the flowers, bright as stained glass, are armed with microbarbs. Nature here doesn't play nice, it plays defense. You think it's bad now, you haven't met the sun. By mid-morning, it's staring directly at you like it knows all your secrets. Shade is a luxury afforded only by those with decent cliff homes or hand-woven sun shields made from yucca fibers. Yours is more like a decorative napkin. Your sweat evaporates before it finishes forming. The only moisture you experience is regret. And while you're staggering through this dusty oven, someone like Naota walks by. She's 9 years old, barefoot, balancing a basket of maize on her head like it's nothing. She nods politely, not breaking stride. You want to ask how she's surviving. She's been doing this longer than you've been alive. She has the kind of quiet resilience that doesn't need sunscreen. Naota's people, let's say the ancestral Pueblones, have adapted for centuries. They know how to read the wind like a language. They know when the ants move uphill, water's coming. They know not to waste a single drop. You, on the other hand, just drank half your canteen, and are now seriously considering licking a cactus. Fun fact, you can't drink cactus water, it's toxic. That's your quirky tidbit for today. Like licking a battery made of soap and acid. But go ahead, give it a try. Maybe you'll hallucinate yourself a fan. The ground is covered in pottery shards, some from water vessels, some from ceremonial use. Historians still argue whether certain painted designs represented gods, trademarks, or just very early attempts at sarcastic memes. Either way, you probably stepped on someone's sacred great-grandmother's face without knowing, and still the work continues. Communities relied on collective survival. You were expected to contribute, not complain. Complainers were ignored, or pitied, or, in rare stories, sent off to find the sky, a poetic way of saying please leave before you curse our crops. You're beginning to wonder how long you've been out here. 2 hours? Maybe 3. Your feet are blistering. Your skin feels like sandpaper wrapped around regret. Somewhere in the distance, a low whistle, wind or warning. Either way, you're definitely not invited. By noon, Naota's already prepared a small meal of roasted squash, dried rabbit meat, and something that looks like it might have once walked sideways. She offers you a piece, you accept. It's chewy, it tastes like the desert. With notes of charcoal and distant fear, the sun is high now, and the air shimmers. That's not a metaphor. The heat creates actual mirages. You swear you see water. You don't. You swear you hear your name. You don't. But you do hear the rattle. It's faint at first. but unmistakable, rattlesnake. You freeze, because every local child knows what that sound means. And you've just realized your sandals are made from recycled car tires, which is weird, because cars haven't been invented yet. And also, you're hallucinating. Chaka appears from nowhere. He's the local shaman. Teeth stained red from chewing yucca root, his hair woven with feathers, his breath smelling of smoked sage. He looks at you like he's already talking to your spirit. You walked where the lizard sleeps, he says. You don't know what that means. He doesn't explain. Instead, he gently shakes a pouch of herbs, brushes a circle of ash around your feet, and tells you not to move until the shadow passes. You don't know if he means the snake, or something else, so you wait. The heat presses down like a curse, and suddenly you remember what Noota told you earlier with a smile. You won't last till sundown. You laughed then. You're not laughing now. You're still standing in that ash circle, swaying like a dying cactus, eyes darting between the horizon and the sand at your feet, waiting for this so-called shadow to pass. The sun has turned the ground to glass, and every grain of sand seems to be daring you to blink. You start to wonder if you've misunderstood Tokka's instructions. Was the ash supposed to protect you from the snake, or was it a convenient marker, so the villagers know where to collect your bones? Either way, you've got bigger problems now. Your stomach just growled loud enough to scare off a prairie dog. Which brings us to breakfast. Spoiler alert, there's no croissant, there's no toast, there's definitely no coffee. What you get, if you're lucky, is cactus. And I don't mean a filtered Whole Foods, certified responsibly farmed version of cactus. I mean a chunk hacked off with a dull obsidian blade, grilled over smoldering mesquite, and probably garnished with a pinch of desperation. Noota reappears, this time with a flat basket of oddities. She's laid out strips of dried squash, a handful of parched corn kernels, and here's the fun part, what looks suspiciously like beetles, but you're too hungry to ask. Protein, she says, popping one into her mouth, and crunching like it's popcorn. You pretend not to gag. In medieval Arizona, food was an art form, not the kind you'd find in galleries, the kind that keeps you alive long enough to complain about it. The staples were corn, beans and squash, nicknamed the Three Sisters. They were grown together, eaten together, and if you're not careful, they'd all come back up together. And don't think for a second you're getting seconds. Harvests weren't guaranteed. The rain came late, or not at all. Some years the monsoons would crash in with violent generosity, flooding crops and washing away homes. Other years the sky would stay empty, the air dry enough to turn your tears to vapor. Famine wasn't a bad season, it was a cycle. Still, people survived, ingeniously, stubbornly, and often flavorlessly. Historians still argue whether chiltepin peppers, the tiny wild red devils that grew across the region, were used for seasoning or punishment. Either way, if you bite one, you'll spend the next 10 minutes bargaining with any deity available. You try another bite of cactus. It's slimy, like chewing aloe vera marinated in gravel. But it's technically food, and technically better than starving. Tokka joins you and Noota. He brings with him something wrapped in agave leaves. You hope it's meat. It's not. It's roasted yucca root, ground and mashed into a paste. Think of it like ancient hummus. If hummus could taste like slightly burnt sunscreen. Tokka takes a bite, chews slowly, then spits it out. Too dry, he mutters. Too dry. You're thinking, isn't that the point? But they know what they're doing. Every part of every plant is used. Seeds ground into flour, fibers twisted into rope, leaves folded into cooking vessels. The desert may look barren to you, but to them, it's a pantry, a pharmacy, and occasionally, a graveyard. You're sweating again, by the way. The sun has climbed higher. You thought it was bad before breakfast, now it's actively trying to erase you. You retreat into the shade of a mesquite tree, only to discover that shade here is more of a suggestion. It's just dappled sunlight arranged into shapes that mock your need for relief. Noota tosses you a flat, dry patty. It's some sort of corn cake, slightly charred on the edges, but edible. You bite into it, crunchy on the outside, mealy in the middle, and surprisingly salty. That's ant powder, she says, casually. You freeze mid-chew. Dried ants, she clarifies. We grind them for flavor. And calcium. You think of all the overpriced supplements back home. Here you just eat bugs. And you know what? It's not that bad. Still, your brain's screaming like a spoiled toddler, while your body's like, we'll take it, we'll take anything. Speaking of which, hydration. Remember how we said water was a luxury? It still is. The nearest water source is a small seep in the rocks 2 miles away. It's not a spring, it's more like a damp suggestion. Water filters through the sandstone, collects in a little hollow, and evaporates by mid-afternoon. You'd better run if you want any. Noota offers you a sip from her gourd canteen. The water is lukewarm, a little earthy, and has something floating in it. You close your eyes and drink. It tastes like survival. It tastes like dust and moss and mild regret, but it's water, and that's the point. In medieval Arizona, water was everything. Communities sprouted where it flowed. Wars were fought over it. Prayers were whispered to clouds. Droughts could last years. One ancestral village showed signs of being abandoned mid-meal. Burnt food still in the hearth. Bowls left on the floor. Historians still debate whether a sudden drought or spiritual omen drove them away. Either way, people left, and they never came back. Now the sun's straight overhead. Every surface reflects heat back at you like a grudge. You're dizzy. You've consumed cactus, ants and despair, and your stomach is staging a quiet protest. Toka, noticing your pale face, hands you something wrapped in yucca fiber. You open it. It's more cactus, this time fermented. Oh no. Before you can protest, he nods solemnly. Good for spirit. Opens mind. You chew. It's bitter, almost electric. And suddenly the colors are brighter, the wind is louder, and Noota's eyes look like twin obsidian mirrors into infinity. You lie down, and as the mesquite branches sway above you, casting brief shadows that dance like spirits, you realize something awful. This was just breakfast, and the day isn't even halfway done. You're on your back now, sprawled out beneath the tree like a discarded puppet, blinking up at the molten sky. The fermented cactus is still doing strange choreography in your bloodstream. Colors swirl, sounds echo longer than they should, and for a moment, you're convinced. The clouds are whispering about you, but no one's got time for your spiritual awakening. Noota taps your shoulder with the toe of her sandal. You coming? Ceremony's starting. Ceremony. You blink. Toka is already 20 paces ahead, walking slowly, solemnly, with that carved staff of his, the one adorned with bird skulls, owl feathers, and what suspiciously looks like a human molar. He walks like he's done this 1,000 times, which, let's be honest, he probably has. You stagger to your feet, joints popping like dry beans in a clay pot. Your limbs feel like they belong to someone else, someone much older, someone who maybe didn't eat ants for breakfast. Noota hands you a gourd. It's full of crushed mesquite pods mixed with water, sweet, grainy and brown. You sip, hoping it might dilute the cactus juice. It doesn't. Now you're walking with the others. Toward what? You're not sure. There's smoke in the distance. Not fire smoke. Ritual smoke. The kind that smells like creosote, and something vaguely medicinal. The kind that tells your nervous system, we are doing something serious now. And here's the kicker. You haven't even left your neighborhood. See, medieval Arizona wasn't built around big castles or city-states. It was a patchwork of tribal villages, connected by vast networks of trails and trade routes, bound together more by shared sky and soil than centralized power. In the desert, everyone needed each other, even if they pretended they didn't. So when a ritual is happening, everyone shows up. You arrive at a clearing marked by concentric rings of stones. There's a fire in the center. Around it people are gathering, young, old, painted, silent. Some wear feathered cloaks, others are bare-chested with chalk smeared across their arms. There's no talking, just preparation. And then you hear it, a rattle. Not the snake this time, a ceremonial rattle. Hollow gourd, seeds inside, rhythm like a heartbeat. Toka stands at the edge of the fire, arms lifted, face painted in spirals. He begins to chant. You don't understand the words, but the rhythm pulls at you like a tide. The drumming starts, 2 boys with turtle shell instruments pounding slowly, building a sound that settles in your chest like a second pulse. Noota leans over. It's for the rain, she whispers. You glance up. Not a cloud in sight. Historians still argue whether these rain ceremonies were symbolic, superstitious, or meteorologically effective. But down here, in this moment, it feels like you're watching humanity bargain with the universe. Someone tosses dried herbs into the fire. Smoke rises, sweet and choking. Your eyes water, but no one flinches. The smoke is part of the ritual. It carries the prayers upward. It also clears the space, both physically and spiritually. You're told not to move unless invited. You're not invited.
Toka circles the fire, chanting louder. His staff scrapes the earth. He throws something into the flames. Sparks shoot upward like angry spirits. Then silence. Everyone waits. You wait. Your breath slows. And in that silence, you hear the desert. You hear the distant wind sliding through crevices. You hear the flap of a raven's wings. You hear your own heartbeat, wondering how the ancestors survived without shoes or Starbucks. And then a single drop. You feel it, on your cheek. You look up. Nothing. Then another. And another. You realize what's happening. Rain, just a sprinkle, a whisper of moisture. But to them it's a promise. People exhale in unison. A grandmother begins to cry quietly. Someone laughs. A child claps. Toka bows his head. The ceremony isn't over. It's just paused by all. You meanwhile are rethinking every decision you've ever made. Because here's what no textbook tells you. This place, brutal and scorching and insect-infested, is also sacred. People here have survived for millennia, not through brute force, but through observation, ritual and a bone-deep respect for nature's chaos. The ceremony resumes, but with a lighter tone. Someone begins to dance. It's not graceful, more stomping than ballet, but it carries a power. Each footfall sends dust into the air. Each gesture invites something unseen. Others join in, even Noata. She tugs your arm. No, yes, no, yes. Now you're dancing. Well, flailing. You're flailing. Your knees aren't sure what's happening. Your hips are writing their resignation letter. But you're doing it. You're part of something ancient and wildly uncomfortable. And you're sweating. Again. The dancing continues until the fire dies low, and the smoke thins. The sun has begun to tilt toward the horizon. The light softening just slightly, turning the sand from white-hot rage to something almost golden. Then Toka speaks again. He holds up a small clay figurine, weathered, cracked, but clearly cherished. This, he says, is Kiglicha, protector of growth, giver of roots. The figure is passed around. Everyone touches it, even you. It feels warm. Or maybe that's the cactus hallucination again. Either way, it's a reminder. Survival here isn't just physical, it's spiritual, it's social, it's symbolic. And now the ritual ends. You walk back with Noata. As the light fades, she's quiet. So are you. You're tired. Not just physically, existentially. Your skin itches from ash. Your stomach growls with confusion. Your brain is stretched from trying to comprehend a world without electricity, convenience, or sarcasm-based communication. You ask Noata if ceremonies always bring the rain. She shrugs. Sometimes, sometimes not. That's not the point. You nod like you understand. You don't, but you want to. And maybe that's the first step. You wake up in the dark, not the gentle cozy dark of blackout curtains and humming air conditioners. This is a heavier dark, a kind that presses on your chest like a warning. Your eyes open but see nothing. No moon, no fire, just a sky so vast and starless, it makes you question your place in it. And then you realize, you're freezing. Yes, freezing. Because medieval Arizona wasn't just hot, it was dramatic. Desert climates don't believe in moderation. 1 minute you're baking alive under a vengeful sun. The next you're a shivering pile of regrets in a wool poncho that smells like smoked blizzard and failure. You fumble in the darkness. Your bed, a mat of woven roots, feels damp with dew. Your back aches like it's filed a formal complaint against gravity. And you have to relieve yourself. But there's no bathroom. There's no chamber pot. There's just, out there. You step outside. Your feet hit cold dirt, sharp rock, something squishy. You don't ask questions. In the distance you hear something howl, probably a coyote, possibly something worse. In the desert, the line between myth and wildlife is blurry. You remember Toka warning you earlier, night belongs to those who respect it. You're pretty sure he meant you should stay indoors, but it's too late now. You follow the sound of faint chanting. Yes, chanting. Because apparently, midnight rituals are a thing here, and you've stumbled into one. A circle of people stand near the edge of the village. Some wear animal hides, some wear nothing but ash and paint. All hold small bundles, twigs, feathers, stones. The fire crackles low. It's light dancing on their faces like ancient memories trying to resurface. You crouch behind a mesquite bush watching. This isn't for tourists. This isn't even for you. This is survival. Theater. Performed in real time, for real stakes. Someone in the circle begins speaking. You don't understand the words, but the tone is unmistakable. Groove. They're mourning someone, or something. A death, a drought, a vanished animal, maybe all three. Historians still debate what these midnight rites represented. Some think they were a blend of mourning and petitioning, grieving what was lost, while begging the spirits not to take anything more. Others believe they were private communions with ancestors, whose presence was felt most when the world was still and the stars were bright. But you can't see any stars tonight, just firelight, and the face of a boy standing at the edge of the circle, frozen. He's maybe 10. His name is Como. You're told tonight is his first ceremony, alone. His father died last season, swept away in a flood that came without warning, what the elders called a river's revenge. Como's job now is to light the final fire twig, place it into the center pit, and speak a word that only he knows. A word passed down in silence. He doesn't move. The others wait. The wind picks up, brushing through the trees like soft whispers, and then he does it. He steps forward. His hand trembles. The twig flares. The word leaves his mouth. You don't know what it was, but everyone breathes differently after he says it. The twig catches. The fire crackles. Someone begins a soft drumming. The ritual is complete, and you, crouched in borrowed clothes behind a prickly bush, realize this. Nothing here is done casually. Every gesture, every sound, every silence has weight. You've spent most of your life thinking of history as chapters, timelines, textbooks, but here, history isn't past tense. It's a practice. It lives in the boy's fire. It lives in the elder's silence. It lives in the cold, biting air that reminds you, you are not in control. You sneak back toward your sleeping mat, trying not to disturb the night. Every sound you make feels loud. Every footstep is a possible insult. By the time you lie back down, your heart is still racing, not from fear, exactly, but from awe, and maybe a little shame, because you realize something humbling. These people survived not in spite of the desert, but because of it. And you can't even survive a midnight pee break. You wrap your poncho tighter. Sleep comes in patches. You dream of fire, of ash, of a boy, whispering something you can't quite hear. And in the distance, a drumbeat continues. Soft, steady, endless. By dawn, you've developed an entirely new relationship with your spine. You didn't sleep. Not really. You hovered in that purgatory, between discomfort and panic, twitching at every crackle, rustle, or far-off howl, like your nervous system was doing jumping jacks in a woolsack. And now the sun is back. Oh yes, that thing. You've barely wiped the crust from your eyes before it returns, blinding, arrogant, and far too enthusiastic for someone who hasn't had coffee in 700 years. It pours into your adobe shelter like liquid fury, heating the walls and your soul simultaneously. You stagger out, hoping Nata, or literally anyone, has answers. Instead you meet the smoke, a dense white column rising behind the village. Wood smoke, pungent, familiar, but not from cooking. No one's roasting squash this early. This is ritual smoke, which can mean only one thing: someone's sick, or cursed, or both. You follow the scent. Turns out, it's Tocha's hut, which looks less like a house, and more like a fever dream. Animal bones hang from the rafters, bundles of herbs dangle like upside-down broomsticks, and in the corner, something is rattling inside a hollowed-out gourd without being touched. You don't ask. Inside lies a man, middle-aged, sunburned, coughing violently, into a wood. His name is Eban. You learn, he fell ill after stepping into a dry riverbed that locals said was guarded. Whether that means cursed, or just full of angry snakes, no one clarified. Tocha crouches beside him, eyes closed, hands moving through the air, like he's painting invisible symbol. You watch, skeptical. But what choice does Eban have? There's no doctor, no antiseptic, no thermometers, or Tylenol, just heat, fed, and a very intense ritual involving chili smoke and owl feathers. Here's where it gets real. Medicine in medieval Arizona wasn't science, it was story, and stories mattered more than anything. The idea of healing wasn't about biology, it was about balance. The body wasn't just flesh, it was spirit, shadow, and wind. If one part got offended, so you crossed a sacred tree without apology. The rest followed like dominoes. Historians still debate whether healers like Tocha were early physicians, herbalists, or spiritual therapists. The truth is, probably all three. You glance at Eban again. He's sweating, trembling. Tocha chants louder, shaking that gourd rattle until your teeth itch. Then he throws crushed herbs onto a heated stone. Stealer. The hut fills with scent, bitter, earthy, overwhelming. You're about to gag, but no one else flinches. Nata appears at your side, whispering, "This is where the sickness lives." You nod slowly. You don't understand, but you nod. Eventually, Aban's coughing. He sips water. Tocha marks 3 lines on the ground outside the hut, with powdered clay. He rests until the 3rd sign. He says, no one touches him. No questions. No questions. You're full of questions. Like, what if this doesn't work? What if it's something contagious? What if this is all just very elaborate placebo? But in this world, you keep your doubts to yourself. Doubt doesn't grow cool. Doubt doesn't fetch water. Doubt doesn't live long. Instead, you help gather firewood from all steel rocks. It's brutal. The sun's fully up now, and the desert has gone from chilly menace to full-blown aggression. The path to the mesquite grove is rocky, steep, and swarming with insects that seem genetically programmed to hate you personally. One flies into your mouth, another bites your ankle through your sandal. You taste blood and dust. Nata laughs. City people, she says. You tell her you've camped before, in a box with zippers. Yes, she raises an eyebrow. That's not camping, that's hiding. The truth hits harder than the heat. You reach the grove and begin collecting branches. Not just any sticks, dead ones. Still living wood is considered sacred. Burning it is offensive. You select carefully, dragging what you can back to the village. Each step a negotiation between thirst and footpad. As you drop the load near Tocha's hut, a boy about your age, or possibly just a very sun-damaged 12-year-old, points at your arm. You've soft skin, he says. It's not a compliment, it's an observation. You look down. Blisters, sun rash, insect bites. You're basically a walking dermatology ad. This child, meanwhile, has been climbing boulders barefoot, eating ash-flavored lizards, and treating the desert like a plague. He could probably bite a cactus and win. Do your people cry when it rains? He asks suddenly. You pause. Sometimes. You admit. He nods. Us too. It's not mocking. It's communion. Back at the hut, Tocha is preparing another round of herbal poultices for Aban. He motions for you to help. You kneel beside him, following his gestures. Mash this lip. This powder, smear gently on the chest. It smells awful. It feels sacred. It might do nothing. It might do everything. And here's the thing, no one told you. Participating feels good. Not like you solved a puzzle. Good. More like you finally shut up and listened. Good. Because healing here isn't about control. It's about witnessing. About showing up. Aban sleeps. Tocha nods. The ritual is done. For now, you step outside. The sun is lower. The wind has picked up. And across the village, people are starting to cook again. If by cook, we mean fashionable things on flat stones, and hope the ants don't steal it first. You're exhausted, not just tired, soul weary, but something has shifted. You're no longer just observing. You're part of the story now, even if it's just a footnote.
You smell the fire long before you see it. Not smoke fire. There's a difference, and now you know it. Smoke drifts, curls, whispers. Fire announces itself like a drunk uncle at a family gathering, loud, blazing, and full of demands. This one crackles in the center of the village plaza, surrounded by people who aren't panicked, but aren't exactly calm either. Something's happening. Again. Welcome to medieval Arizona, where no hour is drama-free and even dinner time might require feathers, chants, and strategic silence. You shuffle toward the plaza, legs sore, scalp itchy from sleeping on a reed mat and probably sharing it with 5 species of bugs. Nata catches up to you, chewing on a strip of dried meat. What's this one? You ask, hoping it's just a cookout. She glances toward the flame. Warfare. You nearly choke on your own spit. War. Like a battle. She shrugs. Not yet. Yet, around the fire stand 5 men, armed with stone-tipped spears and what look like shields made of thick hide stretched over willow frames. They're dressed for combat, but not local combat. Their body paint is different. One of them wears a necklace made entirely of turquoise, which you've learned is less fashion and more status symbol for people who might stab you. A messenger arrived this morning from another village. The news a conflict is brewing. Why? No one's sure. Maybe it's a water dispute. Maybe someone didn't return a borrowed canoe. Maybe someone insulted someone's ancestor in a story told around the fire. It doesn't take much. Historians still debate how violent intertribal conflict in this region actually got. Some accounts suggest constant low-grade tension, a culture of wariness more than warfare. Others argue for full-scale raids and ambushes, strategically timed during harvests or ritual events. Whatever the truth, today, there's tension you could spread on toast. Tocha steps forward and addresses the group in his measured, gravelly cadence. You don't catch every word, but the gist is clear. Stay calm, stay alert, stay together. The fire is not just light, it's symbolic, it's a gathering place, it's protection, and it's a reminder that heat can be used both for comfort and for warnings. That's when the scouts return. They've seen movement figures far off, near the river canyon. Could be nothing, could be traders, could be thieves, could be worse. A plan is made, no armies here, no marching formations. This is guerrilla life. Light steps, sharp ears, weapons that double as tools. Everyone, and I mean everyone, has a role, even the kids. Nata hands you a pouch filled with pebbles and herbs. For luck, she says. You clutch it like it's a life vest. You're not fighting, obviously. You'd probably cry if someone threw a pine cone at you, but you're expected to watch, to learn, to remember, because history here isn't written, it's lived, and if you survive it, you pass it on. That night, the village changes. Torches are lit along the paths. The fire is stoked higher than usual. People walk slower, speak softer. You hear the faint ring of a flute in the distance. A mournful, lingering sound that feels less like music and more like an apology in the wind. You follow Nata and a small group toward the high ridge on the east side. From there the entire valley stretches below. Cracked earth, dry riverbeds, rows of corn that seem to be holding their breath. In the distance, silhouettes, unmoving. The group sits, waits. No one speaks. Eventually, a voice behind you. Ka, Daha, the old one. You'd think he's a relic, but everyone listens when he speaks. He leans close. This is how it starts, he says. How what starts? He looks at you like you've just asked what dirt is. Fear, he says. Not violence. Fear. That's what you should watch. You do. And he's right. It starts with whispers, with glances, with people standing a little closer to their children, with quiet goodbyes before someone walks alone into the trees, with fewer jokes, with food portioned a little tighter. By morning, 2 of the warriors are gone. They left before dawn, following a deer trail to scout the distant figures. No one eats until they return. It's not a rule, it's respect. Tocha leads a short ritual at sunrise, not a dramatic one, just a circle, just breath, just silence. Then the scouts return. No battle, no blood, just traders. Dusty, slow-moving, heavily adorned traders who thought this was still a friendly zone. Turns out, they'd heard about a recent eclipse and assumed this village had spirit unrest. What does that even mean? Apparently when the moon eats the sun, some tribes believe it's a bad omen. Others think it's a message. Others just think it's a great excuse to stay home and overcook their beans. You don't know what you believe, but you do know this. Nothing in this world moves without consequence. A shadow on the moon becomes a war rumor. A silence around a fire becomes a prayer. A pouch of pebbles becomes your security blanket. The tension lifts, just slightly. By dusk the fire returns to normal size. The flute is back, playing a melody that sounds less like dread and more like gratitude. Nata laughs again for the first time in a day. You realize your shoulders have been clenched since sunrise. That night, Tocha speaks one line before sleep. We didn't fight, he says. That is the history today. You nod. And for once your body doesn't fight sleep. It lets it come. Like the wind. Like peace. Like a moment that almost didn't happen. You're learning. Slowly, painfully. But it's happening. You no longer flinch at every bug bite. You've stopped asking, is this edible? Out loud. You've even started to accept that a bath might just mean rubbing yourself with sage smoke and hoping for the best. This morning, Nata wakes you by tossing a bundle of yucca fibers at your chest. We're building today, she says. Building what? She grins. Your humility. Turns out, today is construction day. And unlike the medieval Europe you might have imagined, stone castles, wooden beams, soaring cathedrals, Arizona's version of building is quieter, earthier, and significantly more likely to collapse if you screw it up. You're making a wall, out of mud. Technically adobe. You follow the others to the mixing pit, where clay-rich soil is blended with straw, sand and water. It's a communal effort. Everyone pitches in, even the elders, who offer unsolicited advice with the intensity of people who've seen way too many walls fall down at the worst possible moment. One man Denu shows you how to stomp the mixture with your feet. He's barefoot. Naturally, you are not. You tried it once. Your soles still feel like they hosted a cactus conference. The mixture is thick, heavy, and somehow both slippery and sticky at the same time. It's like wrestling peanut butter made of sand. Once it's ready, the team begins shaping it into bricks, rectangular lumps pressed into wooden molds and left in the sun to dry. You ask how long it takes. Nata shrugs. Until it's done. That's helpful. Historians still debate the exact techniques used by different indigenous cultures in this region. Some argue that standardized molds existed for bricks. Others suggest more organic shaping, guided by instinct and inherited muscle memory. Either way, it's not fast. You spend the morning hauling mud, stacking bricks, sweating into the earth. It's hard work. Your shoulders scream, your hands blister, your thighs discover a new realm of soreness. But it's also, weirdly, satisfying. Every brick is a promise, every wall is a memory, and if it holds through a monsoon, it becomes part of someone's story. By midday, the sun is unrelenting again. A boy named Tema brings water in a painted gourd. You gulp greedily, only realizing halfway through that he's watching you like a hawk. You spill it, he says. You look down. Your shirt is soaked. At least it's not blood this time. You carry next time. He walks off before you can apologize. That's how it works here. There are no gold stars for trying. You carry your weight, or someone else suffers. This isn't harshness, it's truth. Nata teaches you how to mix more clay. She lets you lay your first brick. It's crooked. She says. You try to fix it. She stops you. Leave it. You'll remember it more that way. That evening, as the walls rise and the shadows lengthen, Tocha visits the work site. He says nothing at first, just observes. Then he traces a spiral into one of the drying bricks with his finger. Now it remembers you, he says. You ask what he means. He gestures to the wall. It holds your weight, your sweat. It will fall when you fall. Comforting, maybe. Later you're told a story by Carso, the elder who always speaks like he's translating from another dimension. He tells you about a wall that saved a village, not because it was strong, but because it was imperfect. One brick, slightly misplaced, he says. Let in wind. Wind fed fire. Fire smoked out snake nest. Saved child. You blink. Accidents are medicine, he adds. And just like that, you stop hating your crooked brick. That night, around the fire, the builders gather. Someone plays the flute. Others eat. You watch your hands, mud-stained, blistered, trembling, and you don't feel weak. You feel used. In a good way. You were useful. The wall stands, crooked, patchy, beautiful, and so do you. For now, your hands ache. Not the dull kind of ache from typing too long or carrying groceries. No, this is that deep, bone-heavy soreness that makes you question how anything as soft as skin can grip a rock for 6 hours and still be expected to braid rope afterward, because that's your next task. Rope. More specifically, cordage. Today you're learning to twist plant fibers into tools, and let me tell you, if you thought medieval Arizona was all sunburns and scary ceremonies, surprise, it's also wildly domestic, and infuriatingly slow. Nata greets you with a pile of stripped agave fibers. They look like the aftermath of a grass massacre. She sits cross-legged on a flat rock, hands working like little machines. Twist, pull, loop, twist, pull, loop. Within minutes, she's produced something that looks suspiciously like actual rope.
Strong, tight, consistent. You sit beside her. You try. Your result looks like a dead lizard wearing a wig. Nutter doesn't laugh. She just says, again. So you do. You twist. You pull. You snap the fibers. You swear under your breath. And try again. Rope, you discover, is more than string. It's sinew. It holds shelters together. Binds bundles of corn. Secures children to cradles when their parents need both hands free. It's not glamorous, but it's essential. Historians still argue whether cord making was purely women's work or more communal. Either way, it was constant, ongoing, like breathing, or worrying, or grinding corn. Speaking of which, guess what you're doing after rope? Grinding corn. You thought that flat stone near Nutter's hut was decorative. Wrong. That's a metate. And the oblong one, that's the mano. Together, they're your new gym membership. You watch as Nutter pours dried kernels onto the stone. Then she begins back and forth, crushing the corn into meal. The motion is hypnotic, rhythmic. You wonder if it's meditative. Then it's your turn. It is not meditative. It's exhausting. The kernels skitter everywhere. The mano slips from your grip. Your back hurts within minutes. Your forearms burn. You begin to fantasize about store-bought flour with a desperation that borders on spiritual. Nutter watches you struggle. She doesn't say anything. She just keeps grinding, unbothered, like she's powered by some ancient force you don't have access to. You think we do this for fun? She asks eventually. You shake your head. We do it because there's no other way. You nod, because what else can you do? This is life here. No shortcuts, no modern convenience. No pause button. Every tortilla you eat is an hour of labor. Every rope you tie is 100 twists of fiber. Every moment of survival is the result of 100 invisible acts you never noticed until now. You take a break. Your back screams. Your palms are red and raw. A girl younger than Nutter, maybe 6, walks by carrying a bundle of firewood that would crush you. She doesn't even flinch. You watch her go, speechless. It occurs to you, not for the first time, that you wouldn't have made it to adulthood here, not without help, not without someone like Nutter, or Carl, or Talker, or even Temmer, who still glares at you every time you spill water. But here's the miracle. They haven't thrown you out. They haven't laughed. They haven't laughed. They haven't asked, why are you here? They've just let you exist, clumsily, inefficiently, humanly. By evening, your cordage still looks like spaghetti that's seen some things. But Nutter takes it anyway. She ties it around a small pouch, cinches it closed, and hands it to you. Inside, roasted seed. You helped. You smile, because that's the rule here. You work, you learn, you eat, you show up, even badly, and you eat. And as the sun dips low again, you sit by the fire with a small imperfect pouch in your lap, filled with warm nutty seeds. And for the first time, you don't feel like a tourist. You feel like part of the rope, tied in, held up, woven into something bigger, something ancient, something that remembers you, even if you forget yourself. You're starting to understand why everything here feels like a ceremony. It's not that people gather around and chant every time someone sneezes, though honestly, you wouldn't be surprised. It's that everything is steeped in meaning, even the quiet stuff, especially the quiet stuff. Like today, Nutter finds you just after sunrise, her face serious. No chores, she says. You blink. No chores. She nods. Today we listen. Oh no, you know this tone. It's the same tone people use when they say things like, this is going to be good for your soul, right before making you walk barefoot up a mountain while hungry. You follow her up a narrow path, away from the village, into the red rocks. The climb is steep, uneven, and coated in loose dust that feels determined to make you fall face first into history. By the time you reach the top, your calves are crying, and your lungs are drafting their resignation letter. You arrive at a flat overlook. Below, the desert spreads out like a quilt, sunburnt, stitched with dry riverbeds, and dotted with ancient brush. You see the village, small and quiet, nestled in its corner of the world. You sit, you wait. Nutter doesn't speak, neither does Talker, who's somehow appeared beside you like he teleported there on sage smoke. Carl arrives next. then Tema, then a few others, a small group, all quiet. Then it begins, a story, spoken by Carl, in a voice that barely rises above the wind. No big gestures, no special effects, just words, and those words are powerful. He speaks of a time when this land wasn't dry, when rivers ran year-round, and birds the size of shadows darkened the sky. He speaks of a people who lived in towers carved into cliffs, who traded shells for salt, and obsidian for prayer. He speaks of a betrayal, of a leader who ignored the signs, of rains that stopped, of crops that turned to ash, and of a long walk, out of everything they knew. Historians still argue whether this tale refers to a real migration or a metaphor. There are ruins across the southwest, abandoned in silence, with meals half-cooked and walls unfinished. Archaeologists debate whether it was drought, war, disease or spiritual exodus that emptied them. But here, in this story, it was grief, so heavy it pulled a whole people into motion. Carl's voice cracks slightly, as he tells of a mother who buried her last child, wrapped in cloth dyed with the last bit of red ochre, who sang as she did it, who stayed behind to finish the song, even as the others walked on. No one interrupts, no one blinks. Even Tema, who usually treats you like an invader, is still face tight, eyes unfocused, like he's watching the past unfold in front of him. When Carl finishes, no one claps, no one says, "Thank you." They just sit, letting the story settle into their ribs like sand into a riverbed. You realize something strange. You feel it too, the weight of it, the truth of it, even if you didn't live it, even if you don't fully understand it. It's in the stones, in the wind, in the red streaks of the canyon walls. The silence after the story is longer than the story itself. Eventually, Nata speaks. "That woman," she says, "was my ancestor." You turn to her, surprised. She shrugs. Maybe not, but I carry her anyway." You nod, not because you get it, but because it feels wrong not to. Later, you descend back to the village. Still no chores, still no talking. People nod to one another, touch shoulders in passing. The energy is soft, reverent. It feels like a memorial, but there's no tombstone, no altar, just memory, woven into breath, into footsteps, into the space between the fire and the stars. That evening, you sit alone by your little mat, tracing lines in the dust. You think of the story, of the woman, of the walk, of grief, and how maybe, just maybe, this isn't a community built on survival. Maybe it's built on remembering, on carrying what came before, even if you don't know all the details, even if it hurts, even if it means stopping everything, just to sit in silence and listen. And as the stars return to the sky, no longer blocked by smoke or cloud or fear, you look up and whisper, "I'll carry it too." By now you've figured out that rest day is a lie. Nato claimed you'd be just listening, and sure, yesterday had its quiet moments, but somehow your legs still hurt, your throat still feels like you swallowed a broom, and now, your name, well, the one they've assigned you is being shouted across the plaza. It means something like Dust Walker. You don't know whether to feel honored or roasted. You limp toward the sound. Tolka greets you with his usual stoic nod. He's standing beside a woven basket filled with obsidian flakes, animal sinew, and sticks that look suspiciously stabbed. "Today, you're learning about weapons. Every hand needs a tooth," he says. Cool, totally relaxing. You're handed a long, narrow stick, and an obsidian shard the size of a credit card, except far sharper. You're to make a spear, not for show, not for fun, for actual survival. Apparently, the last time someone met a bobcat in the canyon, it didn't end in a Disney moment. First lesson, don't cut yourself. You immediately cut yourself. Nothing dramatic, just a nick. But obsidian doesn't play. The blood beads up faster than your pride can recover. Tolka doesn't laugh. He just hands you a lip. "Suck it." You hesitate. Nata walks by, already halfway done with her own spear, and mutters, "He means the lip." You do. It tastes bitter, but the sting fed. Probably some kind of antiseptic, possibly some kind of prank. Either way, it works. The crafting continues. You learn to bind the obsidian to the shaft using softened sinew, which dries rock hard and holds like ancient superglue. You scrape the shaft smooth with sandstone, notch the handle for grip, and decorate it with charcoal lines that mean absolutely nothing to you, but probably mean. Don't steal this to everyone else. The whole thing takes hours. And here's the kicker. No one rushes, because here, speed is a liability. A poorly balanced spear is a joke at best, a funeral invitation at worst. You watch Tama throw his, straight, true, quiet. It lands in a bale of dried yucca, with a satisfying thwack. Then it's your turn. You line up, you breathe, you throw. Your spear lands 5 feet away from the target, and cartwheels like it's auditioning for a circus. Tama stays. Nata winces. Tolka raises an eyebrow, and mutters something that translates loosely to, well, at least it didn't hit a child. Progress. You try again, and by the 4th throw, it doesn't roll. It wobbles, then thuds into the outer edge of the target. Everyone claps. Well, everyone doesn't not clap, which is as close to a standing ovation as you're going to get. But here's what no one tells you about weapons in medieval Arizona. They're not just tools, they're identity. A spear says you protect, a sling says you hunt, a knife says you survive, and the weapon you make with your own hands. That's not just gear, it's an extension of your warrior. Historians still debate the full scale of warfare in pre-Columbian Arizona. Some claim constant skirmishes and territory feuds. Others argue that these cultures leaned more on warning systems and diplomacy. What's clear is that violence wasn't random. It was regulated, ritualized, and often deeply spiritual. Some spears weren't thrown at all. They were buried with their owners, or offered to gods. You're not sure what your wobbly stick of death would be worth in the spirit realm, but hey, it's your. Later that evening, Nata invites you to a different kind of practice. Not weapons, movement. The plaza's been cleared, the fire's lit low, drumming begins. Not performance drumming, ritual drumming, the kind that vibrates in your teeth. People gather, not to spectate, to participate. Nata explains. Nata explains. This is the echo step, a training ritual for young warriors. You mimic animal movement, you mirror nature. It's part dance, part exercise, part spiritual attunement. Think martial arts meets nature documentary. Your job, be the wind. That's what she says. You attempt to be the wind. You end up looking like a slightly embarrassed leaf caught in a crossbreeds. But no one knocks you, because here, effort matters. Precision comes later. A boy your size, older maybe, shows you the coyote step. Quick-footed, low to the ground, scanning side to side. Another girl teaches you the hawk turn. Sharp spins with focused stillness between. And suddenly, you realize what they're doing. They're teaching you to move like the land, not against it, with it, to see before being seen, to know when to hide, when to flee, and when to fight, and when to fight. You move until your body aches again, but this time, it's different, not pain, readiness. You fall asleep that night, with your new spear beside you, not because you expect to use it, but because you may. And maybe, just maybe, you're beginning to believe you could survive this place for one more day. Maybe, this morning, your alarm is a scream, not a shriek of terror, more like an angry goat sound filtered through a bullhorn. You bolt upright, heart thumping, already reaching for your spear, which you somehow slept on, which explains the stabbing pain in your back. Outside, the village is in motion, not panic, but definite urgency. People hustling, baskets moving, hands pointing. You find Nat near the plaza, eyes sharp, face unreal. What's going on? She doesn't answer right away, just motions for you to follow. You do, and then you see a bison, massive, muscled, breathing like a furnace, and completely out of place. Bison didn't typically come this close to settlement. Too many people, too much noise. But today, for some reason, this one's wandered right to the edge of the village. It's not charging, not yet, but it's staring, and that scream came from Tama, who had the misfortune of surprising it while relieving himself behind a rock. You quietly agree that this place takes nothing for granted, not even bathroom breaks. Tuchet is already at the front, spear in hand, speaking low and fast, with 3 others, hunters, real ones. the kind with shoulders like tree trunks and eyes that squint from too much sun, not from skepticism. They're discussing what to do. Let it wander, scare it off, take it down. Nata leans over. This is rare, she says. We haven't had mid-to moons. You nod slowly. You know what that means. They're going to hunt it. But this isn't some macho fantasy, where everyone charges and yelling. No one here does anything without ritual, even killing. Tucha turns, says a few words in the old language, then begins painting lines down each hunter's arms, symbols of guidance, symbols of thanks. Because yes, even predators get thanked here. You kill with permission, with humility, with the knowledge that this land is not yours. You borrow. The hunting party moves like shadows. You're not part of it. You're not ready. But they let you watch from a safe distance, behind a bluff, alongside Nutat and Kasa. From there you learn how the hunt actually works. There's no brute force, no wild charge. It's geometry, timing, reading the wind, knowing where the bison might bop, understanding that every step it takes is a calculation, and yours have to be better. They flank it in silence. Two from the side, one from behind, two chat up front, calm still, Titty up front, calm still, waiting. Then it happens. A gust of wind. The bison snorts. It moves, fast. The hunters move faster. Spears arc through the air, sharp and silent. Two hit, one misses. The bison stumbles, turns, charges, and for one terrifying moment, you think it's coming straight toward you, but it doesn't. It falls, the dust settles, and no one cheers. Instead the hunters walk slowly to the animal. They kneel, they touch its fur. Tucha speaks again, barely audible over the wind. A thanks, a farewell, a prayer. You walk down with the others, up close. The bison is enormous. Its eyes are open. Its breath is gone, and still, there is reverence. You help carry what you can. It takes hours. Nothing is wetted. The meat, it's cut, clipped, smoked. The butt set aside. The hide stretched, pegged, clipped. Even the hooves have use. Even the tail. Nata teaches you how to prepare the tongue. Apparently, a delicacy. You're hesitant. You taste it. It's not bad. Rich, earthy, more honest than anything you've eaten in months. And you realize something. Food here doesn't come with guilt or performance. It comes with gratitude. Even the children help. Stripping sinew, collecting marrow, keeping the fire fed. There's no hiding from the process. If you want to eat, you see what was lost, and you thank it. That night, a quiet feast. No dancing, no music, just eating, together, slowly, respectfully. You sit next to Tucha. He hands you a small carved bone. Your piece, he says. You nod, unsure what to say. Then he adds, you didn't, but you watched. You felt. That matters. You grip the bone. It's smooth, polished, from the leg. Maybe. It smells like smoke, like memory, like belonging. And when you sleep that night, belly full, hands raw, bone tucked under your blanket, you dream not of fear, but of wind in the grass, and something watching from the hills, not as predator, but as witness, and somehow, that feels like home.
You wake up before the sun, not by choice, by drum. A slow, steady beat, distant at first, like thunder still deciding whether it wants to be serious. Then louder, closer, more insistent. It rattles your ribs before you're even vertical. You sit up. The village is already stirring. Fires crackle. Shadows move. Voices murmur in low, respectful tones. Everyone is dressing differently today. Feathers, beads, stripes of ochre, and white clay drawn across faces and arms. You spot Nanita near her family's hearth, rubbing ash onto her cheeks in wide, even swipes. She sees you watching and calls out. Today is remembering. Bo. Oh no. You know what that means. Another ceremony. Another no eating, until after you've seen things you'll never forget. Kind of day. You approach cautiously. Tuche is there too, already painted, already silent. Nanita hands you a piece of charcoal. Mark your face, she says. You hesitate. What are we remembering? She looks at you, long and quiet. Then she points beyond the village walls. Those who never made it here. A memorial, but not like anything you're used to. No stone, no candles, no names on plaques. This remembrance is older than that, wilder. It's not about individuals, it's about absences, the gaps in the stories, the footprints that stopped, the homes built but never finished, the meals cooked for mouths that never returned. You follow the procession, past the drying racks, past the cornfields, into the red hills where ancient carvings mark the cliff spirals, hands sunbursts, animals with oversized eyes, petroglyphs, stories frozen in stone. You stop at a wide open space, flat, empty, sacred. Everyone sits. No one speaks. For a long time it's just the wind. Then a voice begins to chant. Softly. Not a song. Not a prayer. A list of events, places, moments. A volcano. A drought. A missing hunting party. A girl who fell into a canyon and was never found. A family who left and never returned. Car speaks each line like a stone placed gently on the ground. This is their ritual, not to erase the past, but to name its edges. Historians still argue whether these oral remembrances were literal or symbolic, whether they recounted factual events or simply gathered sorrow into something survivable. But watching it now you realize it doesn't matter. The truth is in the weight, not the words. Nanita begins to hum. Others join. It's not a melody. It's a vibration. A sound older than music. A sound that feels like dust rising and settling again. Then silence. Che stands. He holds a pot. It's old. Maybe the oldest thing you've seen yet. Cracked, darkened by fire. Etched with lines like rivers or veins. He places it at the center of the gathering. Then one by one people approach. Each drops something inside. A bead, a feather, a grain of corn, a fingernail-sized shard of pottery. Offerings. Not to gods, to memory. Your turn comes. You panic. You didn't bring anything. But Nanita hands you a stone. Plain, round, heavy. You carried it yesterday, she says. It remembers. You step forward. You drop the stone into the pot. It lands with a soft clink. And for reasons you can't explain, your throat tightens. The ceremony ends not with applause or declarations. It ends with a breath. Everyone stands, returns. Not joyfully, not mournfully, just grounded. Back at the village no one speaks much. Food is made, shared quietly. You eat a flatbread with mashed squash. The flavors more subtle than usual. No spice, just soft nourishment. Even Tema doesn't tease you today. Later you sit by your hut, tracing the lines of your charcoal-streaked face, wondering how long these marks will last. Che passes by and says, only as long as you need them to. You nod. Not because you understand, but because that's the rhythm of this place. Nothing is ever explained, only experienced. And somehow, that's enough. You fall asleep early, and in your dreams, the stone you dropped grows roots. Not down, but outward, connecting to other stones, other stories, other people who once stood where you stand now. People who didn't survive, but were never forgotten. You wake to the sound of humming, soft, steady, like the earth is exhaling through human mouths. A harmony you didn't know you were waiting for. It's still dark, but not night dark. Pre-dawn, that strange grey-blue hour, where everything feels suspended, like the desert's holding its breath, and nobody wants to be the first to break the silence. You step outside. The village is in motion again, but gently this time. Less chaos. More choreography. People move like they've done this dance since before memory. You follow them like sleepwalking, guided only by instinct and the faintest whisper of Nanita's voice. It's water day. Water day. You didn't know that was a thing. Until now. Turns out, in a place like this, water gets its own holiday, or close to it. Because while every drop is sacred here, some days are more sacred than others, especially when the last rain fell 2 moons ago, and the clay bowls in the storage hut are echoing with emptiness. Today, you're going to the canyon. The real canyon. Not the tiny riverbed. where birds drink and scorpions flex, the sacred canyon, the one people only visit on water days, and it's a hike. You travel in silence. Toche leads, always. His staff taps the earth in slow rhythm. You follow the path through rocky scrubland, twisting ridges, and dry gullies that once held flash floods, but now feel like broken promises. The sun peeks over the cliffs, and there it is, a ribbon of green in the red dust. The canyon. You descend. It's not just a pit in the earth. It's alive. Lush compared to the desert above. Tall reeds. Prickly pears fat with moisture. Moss that clings to shady boulders. And at its center the goal. A seep. Water. Barely more than a trickle from a cracked sandstone face, pooling slowly in a stone basin worn smooth by centuries of hope. You want to run to it. Dive into it. But no one does. Toche kneels first. Places a hand on the stone. Whispers something too low to catch. Then dips a bowl. Carefully, slowly. As though the water might disappear if he moves too quickly. Everyone follows his lead. No splashing. No waste. No noise. Just reverence. You're handed a bowl. Your hands tremble. You dip. You drink. It's cool. Slightly metallic. Alive. And in that moment it hits you, water here isn't refreshment. It's reunion. A return. Toche pours a few drops onto the ground. An offering. Nanite explains. We give some back. Always. You nod. You understand now. Or you're starting to. Then the gathering shifts. Not back up the trail, but deeper into the canyon. Because Water Day isn't just about collection. It's about memory. About reconnecting to where the people first found life. At the base of a cliff you reach a rock wall covered in handprints. Red, white, black, hundreds, layered, black, hundreds, layered, pressed, stained into the stone. A gallery of survival. Nanite touches one. My grandmother's. Grandmother's. Maybe, she says. You touch one beside it. It's smaller than your palm. A child's. You stand there surrounded by ghosts you didn't know you missed. You realize this isn't about nostalgia. It's about continuity. That water. It fed these hands. These hands built your shelter. Taught you to twist rope. Helped you find your way through the fire and mud and endless hunger. These hands raised spears. Raised children. Raised storids. And now, they raise you. You return to the village slowly. Bowls full. You distribute the water together. Carefully. Equally. One drop for each mouth. One splash for each fire. One offering for the sky. That night, Nanite gives you something unexpected. A cup. Made of clay. Shaped unevenly. Cracked at the rim. She smiles. You're ready to keep water now. You don't know whether to laugh or cry. So you just hold it. Because here, a cup isn't a container. It's a responsibility. And you're finally trusted to carry something that matters. It rained last night. Not much. Not even enough to fill a bowl. But enough to change everything. The smell hit you first. Wet dust. Blooming creosote. Something ancient rising from the soil. Like it remembered how to breathe. The kind of scent that doesn't just drift through the air. It claims it. You woke up with it in your mouth. In your hair. Under your nails. Everyone's outside now. Not rushing. Just absorbing. Rain doesn't show up often here. When it does, the world pauses to acknowledge it. There's no panic. No scrambling for umbrellas or shelter. There's just silence. Reverence. A subtle rearranging of the air. Nanite finds you near the hearth, clutching your cracked little water cup, like it might refill itself. Good, she says, glancing up at the grey sky. Now we can do the burning. You blink. The what? She grins. Come. Today we send our words. Words, it turns out, are made of smoke. You follow the others to the edge of the village where a circle of stones has been arranged and cleaned. At the center is a fire. Small now, but ready. Around it sit bundles. Bark strips. Cactus pulp. Dried flower petals. Crushed charcoal. You're handed a thin strip of agave leaf. And a bit of black clay. You write, says Tocha.
appearing as usual with no sound and no warning. You stare at the leaf. You have no pen, no ink, just clay and silence. Nanite leans over. You don't write words. You write feeling. And suddenly, you're terrified. Because this isn't performative. It's not a journal entry. It's not a diary. It's a confession. A release. So you smear the clay onto the leaf. And with your fingertip, you shape it. Not letters. Not symbols. Just movement. Curves that feel like longing. Dots that feel like regret. A slash that feels like hope. When you're done it looks like nothing. But it feels like everything. You step into the circle. Drop your leaf onto the flames. It smokes instantly. Curls. Shrivels. Rises. Gone. Tocha nods. It has been sent. Around you, others do the same. Some whisper as they release. Some cry. One woman sings low and broken. A note that never resolves. Historians might struggle with this one. There's no clear record of these smoke messages. No carvings. No oral recitations. But traditions like this leave their trace in memory, not stone. You wonder how many messages have risen from these flames over the centuries. How many truths have become wind. Nanite lets hers burn in silence. Then turns to you. You think smoke disappears, she says. But it just travels. The wind shifts, carries a puff of grey eastward, toward the canyon, toward the cliff hands, toward someone else's morning. Later you help sweep the ash from the fire pit. Not to erase it, to honor it. Ash, here, isn't waste. It's foundation, mixed into new bricks, smeared into wounds, marked across foreheads during ceremonies of loss. Ash remembers. You spend the rest of the day quiet. Your body's still sore from yesterday's canyon hike, but you welcome it now. It's become a familiar ache. Like your muscles are making room for this new life, this new rhythm. That night, by your hut, Nanite leaves something beside your mat. A feather, black and white, striped like twilight. You pick it up, confused. Before you can ask, she simply says, to remind you, of what? That you have a voice now, even if no one hears it. You don't know what to say, so you don't. You just hold it. And when you sleep, you dream of smoke, spiraling upward, carrying your name somewhere. Only the stars know. You've started waking up without being told, without drums, without smoke, without Nanite throwing things at your head. You rise with the light now, just before the sun crests the cliffs, when the air is still cool, and the birds haven't fully decided if they want to perform or sleep in. It's strange how quickly the body adapts when it stops fighting everything. Even stranger how your feet find the path before your brain wakes up. This morning, the village is quieter than usual. No ceremonies, no crises, no bison, just a slow return to routine, which means grinding, your old nemesis. The metate waits for you, already dusted with yesterday's cornmeal. You kneel beside it, and begin mano in hand, back and forth circular, like churning old secrets from hard stone. Nanite joins you a few minutes later. She doesn't speak, neither do you. You've reached that point where silence is comfortable, not awkward, not empty, just present. As you work, your mind drifts, something it couldn't do before, when every muscle was screaming. You think about Tocha's smoke ritual, about the water day, about that one crooked brick you laid, that still hasn't been fixed, and you realize, nothing here is ever rushed. Everything becomes what it's supposed to be, when it's supposed to. You glance at Nanite. She's humming, a low rhythmic tune. Not happy, not sad, just steady. Is that a song? You ask quietly. She nods. From the mountain people. My mother sang it when she ground seeds. Her mother too. What does it mean? She shrugs. Don't know. Not all songs mean things. That somehow makes sense. Later Tochai pulls you aside. There's a task. A small one. You're going to the edge of the mesa to gather blue clay. It's used for sealing water pots, painting ceremonial masks, and if you're lucky, cooling burns. He gives you a pouch, and a warning. Don't take too much. The earth notices. So you walk. It's a long trek. Alone this time. The path curls through juniper groves, across rock shelves, past markings so old they've turned into shadows. You hum Nanite's tune, low and clumsy, just to keep yourself company. When you reach the clay bed, it's exactly as described, cracked, dry, but still sticky beneath the surface. You kneel, scoop carefully, just enough to fill the pouch halfway. As you stand, you notice something nearby, a rock sun-bleached and pock-marked, covered in hand-sized depressions. Mortar holes, dozens of them, worn smooth, abandoned. You sit beside them, run your fingers along the edges. You wonder who used them, what songs they sang, what stories they whispered between grinds. You wonder why they left, and if they meant to return. Historians have found these mortars across the southwest, often far from modern water sources. Theories abound: seasonal camps, trade stations, places of worship. No one knows for sure. But here's what you know. This place feels like someone once loved it. And that's enough. You press your hand into one of the old mortars. It fits perfectly. Not because you were meant to be here, but because someone will. You walk back slowly, clay pouch warm against your hip. At the village, Tochan nods as you hand it over. He doesn't inspect it, doesn't measure it, just says, "Thank you," and sets it by the hearth. As if your journey was always the point, not the contents of the bag. That night, Nanite sits beside you with a bowl of roasted squash and acorn. She looks at you for a long time. "You're staying," she says. You blink. "What? You're not leaving?" "Not yet. Mate yet. Maybe not for a while." It's not a question. She's not asking. You think about the drinks, the smoke, the calluses on your hands, the way you no longer miss shoes. You nod. "I guess I'm not." She smiles. And together you eat in silence. Just like all. You wake to laughter. Real, full-bellied, carefree laughter. It throws you off. Because here, laughter doesn't just happen. It arrives. Usually after hard work. After ceremony. After something nearly went wrong but didn't. So to hear it bubbling across the plaza before sunrise, that's rare. You pull on your woven tunic. Coarse, sun-bleached, itchy, and step outside. The source of the noise. Children, running barefoot between huts, chasing each other with muddy hands, and shrieking with delight. One of them is Tama's younger brother, who earlier in the week tried to chew on a beetle, and blamed it on you. Behind them, a group of elders watch, smiling, not stopping the chaos, just letting it breathe, letting the village feel young again. Nanite peers beside you with 2 roasted agave slices on a flat stone. "Eat," she says. "Today is market day." Market day. You didn't even know that was a thing. People trade here. She shakes her head. "We go there." She points across the hills. You groan internally. Another hike. But Nanite's already moving, stuffing goods into a woven pack: gourds, beads, bundles of dried herbs, little clay figures shaped like lizards, frogs, and one that looks suspiciously like you during that time you fainted in the sun. You fall into step behind her, trailing a growing caravan of villagers, children skipping, elders humming, everyone dressed in their finest. Not fancy, just meaningful. Tunics dyed with plant pigments, necklaces strung with turquoise and bone, faces painted with patterns you've learned not to ask about. The trail winds through low canyons, and over ridges, the sun warm but not oppressive. Then you see it, the other village, tucked against a rocky bluff, built low and wide, with dozens of people gathered under a shaded plaza of wooden beams and yucca thatch. Smoke rises from cook fires. Drums pulse low and steady in the distance. You don't walk in, you arrive. Everyone does. The air shifts. The noise changes. This isn't just trade. It's reunion. Market day, it turns out, is less about buying, and more about bonding. There's no currency here. No copper coins. No silver pieces. Just exchange. "My gourd, for your medicine. Your amulet for my woven belt." One elder offers a story in exchange for a painted shell. No one laughs at the offer, because here, a story is value. Nanite pulls you toward a stall. Flat stone is laid out with delicate pottery. She holds up a shallow bowl etched with spiral lines. "This," she says, "was made by people whose homes are now dust. Their designs live longer than the dew. You touch the bowl. It's warm mug. Alive. You trade a bundle of blue clay for it. The woman behind the stall nods slowly, as if you've passed some unspoken test. Elsewhere, a young man beats a drum shaped from stretched hide and driftwood. Children gather to dance. Not rehearsed, not formal, just instinctual movement. You're pulled into it by a girl half your size, who insists you must move like the rain. You try, you fail, but no one cares. Food is shared without question. You're handed roasted rabbit wrapped in wild greens, a smoky pepper stew that numbs your lips, a strange sweet paste made from mesquite beans that tastes like burned molasses and memory. In the corner of the plaza, a man tells a story, not loud, but everyone listens. It's about two twin brothers who followed a coyote into the sun. One never came back. The other returned with a voice full of thunder. He speaks with such conviction, you forget he's telling a myth. If it even is a myth. Historians often overlook these marketplaces. They call them seasonal trade hubs. Temporary, functional, but they miss the point. These aren't just economic zones. They're lifelines. They connect scattered peoples across the desert, across generations, across belief systems. They preserve unity without uniformity. And you feel it now. You're not just observing in you're held by this network of shared dust and story, and spice and song. As the sun begins to lower, the trading winds down.
Thus it's a new pouch.
You have a bowl. Tema has managed to acquire a carved flute, and is already playing the same three notes repeatedly, until someone threatens to bury it. Before leaving, Tucha exchanges something small with a man in a cloak. Just a nod, a gesture, a token you don't recognize. Back at the village, the night is soft. No ceremony, no urgency, just firelight, and full bellies and tired feet. You sit beside your hut, bowl in hand, watching stars appear one by one like stories waiting to be told. Nanite sits beside you. You did good, she says. You glance at the bowl. It's just clay. She smiles. No, it's proof. Of what? That you belong. You look up at the stars again, and for the first time in days, you don't feel like you're visiting history. You feel like you're part of it. The heat returned today, not the usual dry, scratchy sort that bakes your shoulders, and makes every surface feel like a stovetop. No, this is the still kind, the kind of heat that presses against your skin and seeps into your chest, making the air feel heavy, even when you're doing nothing. A quiet suffocation. Everyone feels it, even the dogs. They lie stretched in the shade, panting with their tongues flopped out like rugs, barely lifting their heads when children run by. Even Tochai walks slower today, his staff dragging behind him in the dust, leaving a crooked line like a snake that's given up. You try to help. You do. You start by offering to refill the village water jugs. Nanite looks at you, eyebrows raised, like you just volunteered to catch the wind in a basket. You sure? Yes, you say proudly. 4 hours later, you're lying face down in the shade of a rock, wondering if maybe you were never meant to experience Arizona in any century, but you make it back, eventually, with 2 half-filled gourds, sunburned forehead. And you're pretty sure there's a cactus spine in your thigh. Nanite takes one look at you and says, congratulations, you're now officially part of the Heat Fools Club. Apparently, it's a thing. Tuchai blesses the water by touching his forehead, then the lip of the gourd. Nothing dramatic, just gratitude. Always gratitude. The village doesn't work much today. It breathes. Children draw shapes in the dust with sticks. Women sort seeds under shade canopies, gossiping in low voices that sound more like singing. Tema builds a sculpture out of bones and feathers, and he names it Very Dangerous Spirit. You nap in the dust and wake up with a chicken standing. Otter shows you how to make sun ink. It's a mix of charcoal, mesquite sap, and patience. She uses it to draw on pottery. You use it to smear your name on your gourds. It immediately melts off in the heat. Progress. Later, clouds gather fast. 1 minute the sky is blank. The next it's a boiling wall of grey and silver, rolling over the mesa like it has somewhere to be. The wind picks up. Fast. Dry. Angry. People start moving, tying down mats, covering baskets, securing fire pits. You're told, simply, dust is coming. They mean a storm. You've seen storms before. You haven't seen sing. Within minutes, the air turns brown. The wind screams. Your eyes sting. The world disappears. It's not rain. It's not thunder. It's us. The desert is lifting itself into the air and throwing itself at everything. You cling to the wall of your hut, eyes shut, mouth covered, and you think this isn't weather. This is a warning. When it finally passes, everything's changed. The ground is coated in new powder. The trees are bent. The village is quiet. No one talks for a while. Everyone checks on each other. Tochai walks the perimeter with a bowl of ash, sprinkling it at the corners of homes and whispering things you can't hear. Later, Nanita explains, it's not about superstition. It's about acknowledgement. You must tell the land you noticed, that you see it. Historians call these storms haboobs. They describe them in numbers, wind speed, pressure, particulate count, but no data can capture what it feels like to be erased from the world for 20 minutes, wondering if the ground will still be there when the sky clears. That night, no one cooks. The firewood is damp, so everyone shares cocksings, roasted seeds, dried squash, cracked nuts with little salt crystals in the ridges. Tochai tells a story by news about a boy who chased a hawk during a dust storm and came back with white hair and no shadow. Tama swears. It's about him. Everyone looks. You do. Even the storms come with community. You sleep hard that night, covered in a thin layer of dust, and a strange kind of peace. Not because the world is safe, but because you finally understand here. No one survives alone. You wake to rain, real rain, not sprinkles, not mist, not the kind that whispers and disappears. This is the kind. This is the kind. This is the cup of rain that slaps the roof like it's trying to get in, that turns the hard-packed earth into a puddle, that smells like iron roots and something freshly forgiven. You step outside and instantly regret not wearing anything waterproof, but no one else seems to care. Children are dancing, adults are hauling out pots and jars and baskets and cracked open anything that can catch the rain. It's a mad, joyful scramble, like the gods are throwing down silver, and no one wants to miss it. Nanita is already soaked. Her tunic clings to her skin, her hair plastered across her face, her hands outstretched like she's conducting the skull. You ask, shouldn't we be covering things? She laughs. No, today we uncover them. Turns out, rain is less a weather event, and more a village holiday. You help place pots near the roof edges to catch the runoff. The thatched coverings drip steadily, creating dozens of tiny waterfalls that the children try to leap through like they're testing. They're testing their luck against nature's law. The air smells like possibility, and you finally feel it. Really, not yours. The lands, even the trees seem to stand tall. Tochai appears with a long-handled spoon and a bowl of something warm. You take it gratefully. It's corn stew, flavored with scorching stew, flavored with mesquite, and surprisingly bits of roasted cactus blossom. It's sweet, spicy, alive. You sit on a stone and eat it, while the rain soaks your shoulders, and it's the best thing you've tasted in weeks. Then something strange happens. The drumming starts. Not a ritual, not a ritual this time. Not yours. Not ceremony. Just rhythm. For fun. Tama's tapping on a hollow boom. Nanite claps along. A boy with a voice like a warm breeze begins to hum. You hear a song rise out of the storm, and it's not just beautiful, it's defiant. Because rain here isn't just water. It's a reminder that even this dry, unforgiving land keeps pushing back. The earth remembers. The people sing. The rest of the day swans. Restful. You help patch a leaky roof using reeds and mud that are now, ironically, impossible to dry. Nanita teaches you how to seal pottery cracks with pine pitch. using heat from a fire built under a wide clay hood that somehow keeps the flames alive in the warmth. You sit together, warming your hands, not speaking much, but eventually she asks, "What do your people do when it rains?" You think, you try to explain. Umbrellas, traffic, complaints. She frowns. Why? Why complain? She frowns. Why complain? Just the sense that someone. You're on. You're on. That night, the storm fades into drizzle. The sky cleared slowly. Cheetle glow stars peeking out, like children after a storm. You laugh. You know, Matt, still cheetle, and happy, because today wasn't about survival. It was about celebration, about joy. That doesn't apologize. About dancing not because it rained, but while it rains. You fall asleep to the sound of droplets on clay, the crackle of distant laughter, and the soft certainty that here, in this forgotten corner of time, you finally learned how to be wet and grateful at the same.
The morning after the rain feels like waking up inside a secret. Everything's different, but not loudly so. The air smells green, the dust is quiet. Even the birds seem stunned. You step outside and the world feels like it just remembered it's alive. Nata is already up, crouched near a patch of earth that yesterday was cracked and hopeless. Today, sprouts, tiny ones, barely visible. But they're there. She smiles, touches one gently with a fingertip. "They always wait," she whispers. She means the seeds. You mean everything. Today is planting day. Not the frenzied kind you see in movies with tractors and shouting. This is slow, purposeful, ancient, like a prayer being whispered to the dirt. You're handed a digging stick, a narrow, fire-hardened rod sharpened to a point. No shovel, no plough, just this and your hands. Nata shows you the rhythm: press, twist, drop seed, cover, breathe, repeat. You kneel beside her, rows marked by stone, the soil still damp enough to work, but stubborn in places. You ask what you're planting. "Corn," she says, "beans and squash." The sisters, you've heard of them. The three sisters, a planting method that's more choreography than agriculture. Corn grows tall, beans climb the corn, squash sprawls below, guarding the roots with shade. A full ecosystem in one patch of soil. You try to copy her rhythm. It's not bad. Then your digging stick breaks. Nata doesn't laugh. She just hands you another. Made from bone this time. Use this. It remembers more. You blink. Bone. She nods. From a deer. One that gave us meat last season. You hesitate. She shrugs. Everything gives. Then gives again. That stays with you. All day. You plant. Row after row. Calloused fingers pressing futures into the earth. At one point, Tema walks by with a gourd full of water and deliberately splashes your feet. You look up, ready to scold him, but he just says, "You plant better when you're grounded," and walks off like he invented wisdom. Tocha watches from the edge of the field. He doesn't help. He never does. That's not his role. He observes. He protects the rhythm, the memory. Later he speaks, "These seeds are from 10 seasons ago. The ones before came from 10 before that." And so on. He pauses. "Someday yours will be added." It hits you harder than it should, because suddenly this isn't pretend. You're not just a visitor anymore. You're investing. In a future you might not see. In food you might never eat. In roots that won't remember your face but will remember your hands. The sun climbs higher. So do your blisters. You keep working. Nata sings under her breath, something soft and rhythmic. You ask what it means. She smiles. "It's a song for those underground." "You mean the seeds?" She shrugs. "Them too." By midday the planting is done. You lie flat on your back near the rows, arms out, breathing like you just ran a marathon through time. Nata lies beside you. She says nothing. She doesn't have to. That night, dinner is humble. Thick broth with cornmeal and greens. You eat slowly, not because it tastes amazing, it doesn't, but because it matters. You earned it. The stars come out one by one. You sit by the fire, running your fingers through the dirt still caked beneath your nails. You don't wash it off. Not yet, because today you weren't just in history, you planted yourself inside it. It starts with drums. Again. But not like before. Not war drums. Not ritual drums. Not the steady heartbeat thump of memory or mourning. These are faster. Lighter. Joyful. You rub your eyes, step into the sunlight, and immediately squint. Bright. Too bright. The whole village is glowing. Painted faces. Fresh leaves braided into hair. Smoke curling from every hearth. Nata sees your confusion and grins. You forgot. Today is the naming. You blink. The what? She tilts her head. You've been here long enough. You don't just borrow our food and water. You borrow our eyes. And that means you need a name. You look down at yourself. Mud-crusted tunic, sandals patched with cactus fiber, face probably still streaked with last night's ash. I have a name. She shrugs. Not one that lives here. You try to ask more, but she's already dragging you to the plaza. Everyone is there. Even Kaza, who usually only appears during thunderstorms and ghost stories. Even Tema, who now refuses to make eye contact, which you've learned is his version of respect. In the center of the gathering, a fire, small, contained, surrounded by little bundles, seeds, feathers, stones, carved bits of bone, offerings. Nata explains, the naming isn't about deciding, it's about revealing. You don't choose it. We recognize it. Tocha steps forward. He carries something wrapped in yucca fiber. Slowly he unwraps it. It's a mask, carved from wood, painted with ochre, blue clay and charcoal. The shape isn't human. Not exactly. There are streaks like rivers down its cheeks. A beak-shaped nose. Eyes shaped like seeds. He holds it toward you. You hesitate. Everyone is silent. You take it. The wood is warm. Worn. It fits your face like it's waited for you. Tocha speaks. In the beginning you were a stranger. Lost. Loud. Soft-skinned. Everyone laughs. Including you. But now you walk with dust. You carry water. You plant memory. You listen. You belong. He points to the mask. From this day you are... He pauses. Then says a word you don't recognize. Estava. You repeat it, clumsily. Estava. Nata steps forward. It means the one who stays after the storm. A cheer goes up. Not loud. Not wild. Just warm. You're handed a necklace. Bone beads strung on fiber. With a single painted stone at the center. Your name stone. You wear it. It feels heavy in the best way. The celebration begins. Food. Songs. A circle dance around the fire where everyone moves like something's waking inside them. You try to follow. You mess it up. No one minds. Tema hands you a flute. It only makes 2 notes. He shrugs. That's enough. You play both. Badly. He nods like you just performed at a royal court. Later you sit with Nata beneath the stars. Mask in your lap. Necklace still warm against your skin. You ask her, did I earn this? She doesn't answer right away. Then says, it's not about earning. It's about becoming. You lie back, staring at the sky. You think about that first day. The cracked lips. The snake rattling in the bush. The shame of not lasting till noon. And now. You still don't know what you're doing. You still trip. Still bruise easily. Still ask too many questions. But you're here. And they see you. By name. Not just as someone who survived. But someone who stayed. And that means everything. It's your first solo task. Not a favor. Not a helper role. Not carry this or watch that. No, today. Tocha hands you a pouch. A small blade and a bundle of yucca fiber. And simply says, bring us color. That's it. No instructions. No guidance. Just that cryptic phrase and the unmistakable look of a man who expects you to figure it out or die trying. You look at Nata for help. She raises her eyebrows. It's time. Time for what? For you to find the pigments. Turns out in medieval Arizona, color isn't something you buy. It's something you earn. You want red. You find the right rock. Crush it. Mix it with sweat and spit and sap until it stains like blood and smells like fire. You want blue. You dig for clay in the places the lizards don't dare sleep. You want black. Burn a cactus rib and scrape the ash. You set out mid-morning. North Trail. Light pack. No map, just your blade, the pouch, and the task. The sun is high, but manageable. The storm yesterday cooled the ground just enough for your sandals to not immediately melt into your feet. Nata told you where to start. A dry wash where rain carves veins into the canyon walls. Look in the cracks, she said, where the lizards go to dream. You find it, a streak of red across a boulder. Deep, rusty, like the memory of fire. You chip at it. Gently. It flakes into your hand like dried blood. Into the pouch it goes. Next yellow. You search. Walk the ridge. Nothing. You're about to give up when you spot a patch of flowers. Tiny stubborn growing from a crack in the stone. Their petals are dull gold. You pluck two. Mash them between your fingers. They stain. Not vibrant. But they count. Into the pouch. You trek further. Deeper into the hills. Farther than you've gone alone before. The air thins. The quiet deepens. You find a charred stump old fire scar. Maybe from lightning. The wood crumbles black between your fingers. Ash soot, charcoal. You collect it carefully. Last is blue. You dig. You scrape. You curse. And then you find it. A vein of clay in the wall of a shaded alcove. Pale at first. But when you wet it with spit, it turns sky. Sky and sorrow. Perfect. You kneel. Press your hand into it. Say thank you. Because that's what they taught you. Nothing is taken without acknowledgement. Even this. You walk home as the sun leans toward evening. Pouch full. Back sore. Feet blistered. But proud. You return just as the fire is being lit. Tocha takes the pouch. He doesn't say anything. Just opens it. Looks inside. Nods. Then he walks away. Nata sits beside you later, sharing a roasted root. Did you think you'd make it? She asks. No, you admit. Good, she says. Only fools are sure before the journey. The pigments are used that night. Mixed into paints for a new pot. A story pot. You watch as Tocha's fingers swirl your colors into lines and symbols. You don't know what the story means. Not yet, but you know what it cost. And that makes it yours. You fall asleep with red under your fingernails, yellow dust on your knees, and a smear of sky blue across your forearm. And for the first time, you don't feel like a visitor to this village. You feel like part of its palette. You're learning to see in layers now. Not just what's in front of you, but what was what could be. A rock isn't just a rock anymore. It's a potential tool, a canvas, a weapon, or a story waiting to be carved. A plant isn't just a leaf. It's medicine, thread, flavor, warning, maybe all four. So when Tocha hands you a bundle of feathers and says, "Today we make wind," you don't even flinch. You just nod, then immediately panic. Nata finds you halfway through mentally unraveling his riddle. Wind, she says with a grin, means fans, and breath, and dance, and stories. So helpful. Start with this, she says, handing you a branch. Curved, sanded smooth. The perfect arc for motion. Then she shows you how to attach feathers. Turkey, hawk, crow, each chosen for a reason. Each pointing a different direction. The placement is slow, methodical, sacred. These aren't decoration. They're language. Wind fans are more than tools. They're messages. Used in ritual, in healing, in movement, in ceremony. A fan can mimic a bird, a spirit, a signal. In some dances the fan doesn't just direct the air. It directs attention. You start building your own. It's crooked. Of course. The feathers tilt unevenly, and the wrapping string keeps sliding loose. Your fingers are sticky with sap and frustration. Nata watches, waits, then finally says, "Wind doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to move." You stop adjusting, let it be crooked, and somehow, it feels right. Later, Tocha gathers everyone in the plaza. Tonight is a dance. Not for outsiders, not for tourists, for the ancestors,
for the ones beneath your feet. A girl has just entered her moon cycle. It's her first, and that means celebration, not shame. She's dressed in white clay and sunflower oil, hair braided, wrists wrapped in woven cord. Everyone circles the fire, and the wind fans come out, including yours. You're placed in the second row, not the front, but not hidden either. Nata whispers, match the rhythm, not the person. The drums start. The chants begin. The fire flickers like it's listening. You raise your fan, move with the others. It doesn't matter that you're not smooth, that your steps are half-second late, that your hips feel like they've betrayed you, because the feathers catch the air anyway. They spin, they sweep, they rise, and in that motion you feel it. Wind, not just the breeze, but the breath of those who danced here before you. You remember the handprints in the canyon, the old mortars in the hills, the whisper of Tocha's voice calling you a starver, and suddenly, your fan is more than feathers. It's your flag, your footprint, yes. The dance continues long past sunset. By the end your feet are raw, your throat is dry, but your fan, it's worn in now. The feathers have taken their shape. The stick is warm from your grip. It's yours. The girl is given a new name. People cheer. Tema falls into a cactus. Nata laughs so hard she chokes on squash. And in the flickering shadows, you sit with your fan across your lap and think, maybe this is what flight feels like, even with your feet still on the ground. That night, you hang the fan above your mat, not as a trophy, but as proof that you moved, that you were part of the air, even just for one night. The village is quiet today, not in mourning, not in ritual, just quiet. That kind of silence where no one feels like starting anything loud, where even the dogs lie still, and the children whisper when they play. You sense it before you ask. Someone is gone. Nata confirms it with a nod. The potter, he left in the night. You blink. Died. No, she says. Walked. You wait for more, but there is no more. Because in medieval Arizona, death isn't the only exit. Sometimes people just go, leave their tools, their bowls, their names, walk out into the desert, or into the canyon, or up the mountains without a word. Historians call it abandonment, or migration, or resource-driven relocation, but here, they call it listening to the wind. It means something pulled him, something deeper than duty. You're invited to his parting fire. It's small, a quiet gathering near the edge of the village, where he used to sit with his cracked water jug, and squint into the horizon, like he was always halfway gone already. Someone places his last 3 pots in a row, one plain, one carved, one shattered but carefully reassembled. Tocha speaks. He gave us shape. No one claps, but Nata leans over and whispers, that's the highest compliment. You stay after the fire dies down, staring at the reassembled pot. It reminds you of yourself. Cracked, clumsy, held together by other people's patience. Later, you ask Nata why no one stopped him. She shrugs. Would you cage a cloud? You sit with that for a while. The next morning, his hut is already being not out of disrespect, out of necessity. In this village, space is fluid. You inherit not walls, but memories. You step into them like shoes that are already worn. You sweep the floor of someone's story, and add your own. Your job today is to clean the potter's old work area. It's harder than you expected. Not physically, emotionally. You find remnants of clay, streaks of pigment, broken shards of abandoned shapes. One bowl was never finished, half coiled, half collapsed, like it gave up mid-thought. You finish it, just the rim. You fire it in the communal pit, not because it will be, because it deserves to exist. Nata helps you glaze it with soot and resin. She doesn't say anything. She doesn't have to. When you place it among the others in the storage hut, you realize you've stopped asking whether you belong here, because you're adding things now. You're not just learning history, you're making it. A week later, a traveler arrives. Young, quiet, carrying a flute and a pouch full of sunflower seeds. He says he's passing through. He's invited to stay the night. Then another, then a season. The village expands slightly to accommodate him, and you help build his shelter, because that's how it works. Someone comes, and the world turns without ceremony, but never without memory. That night, as the fire crackles, and people hum low songs about constellations, Nata says softly, "Someday, you might walk too." You nod, "But not yet," and she smiles. Because you both know, you're not finished here. Not yet. There's still more to carry, more to shape, more to plant before you follow the wind. You dream of footprints, hundreds of them, stamped into wet clay, swirling across canyon walls, across your arms, across the inside of your eyelids. When you wake, they're gone, but the feeling stays, because today is tracking day. You don't get a choice. Tocha simply gestures for you to follow as he walks out of the village with a bundle of dried meat, a length of twine, and what appears to be a jawbone dagger. Nata trails behind you, grinning. "You'll like this one," she says. "It's about noticing. That's never good." You walk into the hills, past the wind-worn luffs and the stone spiral cairns you helped rebuild last month. After a few hours, Tocha stops in a dry wash where the earth is soft, a perfect canvas. Then he says, "Find what passed," and sits. No more instruction, no clues, just a sun-blasted stretch of ground, and your confusion. At first, you see nothing, then maybe a mark, a scratch, a line. Could be wind, could be lizard, could be the ghost of a story you're too clumsy to read. Nata kneels beside you, points. Look for interruption. Interruption, yes. The land has a rhythm. What breaks it? You squint, and slowly it starts to appear. A three-toed impression, sharp, pressed deep, followed by another, space just wrong for a bird. "Fox," she says. You nod, pretending you saw it first. Then a dent, a soft one, wider, almost circular. She taps it. "Tortoise, going west." You laugh. "No way." She shrugs. "We'll see." You follow the marks for hours. Some fade, some deepen. You learn to read them like half-erased letters. You find a snake's drag, a broken twig, a disturbed ant mound, a tiny pile of droppings that Nata insists you sniff. You do. Mistake. But the knowledge sticks. Everything leaves a trace. Even you. Later Tocha tests you. He points at the ground. You squint. Then you see bare feet, human, smaller than deep heel, narrow toe splay. A child, you say. Tocha nods, then adds, "Carrying something." You blink. How can you tell? He gestures at the heel depth. They were leaning back, heavy bundle. See the shift here? You do know. And suddenly the land isn't silent. It's speaking. You just never learned the language. Until now. Back at the village you're exhausted, but wired. Like someone handed you a book written in dust, and told you it contains your name. If you're just patient enough to flip the pages. That night, as the stars crack open the sky, you sit with your feet in a basin of warm water, and your mind still following the fox. Nata brings you a gift. A pouch. Inside a tiny carved foot, made of bone. "For your journey," she says. "What journey?" She shrugs. "Whichever one comes next." You wear it around your neck, beside your name, stone. And you realize something. Maybe survival isn't about strength, or speed, or knowing what's next. Maybe it's just about paying attention, and remembering what passed. Because in this place, nothing ever really disappears. It just leaves a trail, and now you know how to follow it. You wake before dawn, not from noise, not from cold, but from a feeling, a pull, like your bones are whispering, "Get up. Something is coming." You sit outside your hut, wrapped in your woven poncho, watching the stars fade as the black sky turns to blue. The horizon pulses faintly, a quiet promise of light. And then the drums begin. Not loud, not fast, just steady, like breath, like heartbeat. You know this rhythm. You've heard it before. But today, it means something new. Nata appears, wearing white clay stripes across her arms. A necklace of shells you've never seen before, her hair braided with sprigs of sage. "It's the day of the totem," she says. You blink. "What's that?" She smiles. But there's no mischief in it, only reverence. It's the day we ask our guardians if we're still on the path. Guardians. You've heard them mentioned half in story, half in smoke. Some say they're spirits. Some say they're animals. Some say they're just the parts of you that still remember who you're meant to be. You join the others at the far end of the village where the totems live. Carved poles, masked stones, stacked bones and painted wood. Some are tall and imposing, others squat and simple. Each family has one. Tocha's is a raven with spiraled wings and eyes made from black glass. Norta's is a serpent looped into a circle with tiny turquoise teeth. You don't have one. Not yet. But that's what today is for. To meet yours, you're handed a stick. Play, uncarved, to be shaped. Tocha says. The villagers sit in silence around the fire, each person taking their turn to walk the spiral path that coils out from the center of the plaza. Stones arranged in a slow winding circle, one loop at a time. You follow Norta. Your feet crunch on gravel. The silence thickens. You step into the spiral and walk. Slowly, every step, a question, every breath, a hope. You try to empty your mind, but that's impossible, because everything comes rushing in. The bison hunt, the canyon water, the seeds, the fan, the pigment, the dance sting, the dust storm, and then an image, a figure, blurred at first, then clearer. It's not a bear, not a bird, not a lizard or a snake or anything you expected. It's you. Not as you are, but as you could be. Wiser, calmer, still, holding a bowl full of light. You stop. The vision fades, but it leaves something behind. A shape, a symbol. You kneel beside the fire and carve into your stick. Slowly, carefully, your hands remembering more than your mind can explain. When you finish, it's simple. A spiral, interrupted at the center. Not broken, redirected. Tocha see. He nods and speaks just 2 words. Seed wind. You blink. Is that mine? He smiles. It is now. That night, you place your totem, a crooked stick with a carved spiral, beside your mat. It's not beautiful, but it's yours. And maybe that's the point. The wind blows softly, the fire crackles low, and as you drift to sleep you whisper your name, both of them, the old one, and the one, and in that space between breath and dream, you feel it. You're still on the path, even if it's not straight, even if it spirals, especially if it spirals. You start the day chasing a chicken, not by choice, not even on purpose. You were just trying to gather kindling when it darted out from under the firewood pile, like a demon with feathers, squawked something accusatory, and took off across the village. You chase it. It dodges. You trip. Tama sees the whole thing, and laughs so hard, he nearly drops the eggs he's carried. Nota doesn't help. She just yells. Maybe the chicken's your new spirit animal. You finally corner it behind the grain hut, scoop it up, and it immediately pecks you in the neck. You return it, mildly bleeding and completely hot. And somehow, this moment, the chaos, the laughter, the ridiculousness of it all, feels like the most human thing that's happened in days, because not everything here is ceremony. Not every lesson is carved into stone. Sometimes, you learn by slipping in the mud while holding a furious bird. Later that morning, you help Tocha gather reeds. It's for basket weaving, which you're told is mostly patience and bleeding fingers. The reeds grow near the old string bird, tall green, swaying like gossiping women. You cut them at an angle, bundle them tight, and carry them back with Nota, who teaches you how to peel and soak them to make them pliable. Then the weaving begins. You start confident. After all, how hard can it be? Your first attempt looks like a drunken spider tried to build a salad bowl. Nota leans in, squints and says, maybe, don't give that one a bottom. Tocha glances over, doesn't say a word, just hands you more. It takes all day, not because the technique is impossible, because the technique demands your attention. You can't rush, can't zone out. Every twist, every fold, every tightening pull is a decision. One knot off, and the whole thing warps. By sundown, your hands ache, your back screams, and your second basket, not perfect, not even symmetrical, is complete. You hold it up. Tama calls it a slightly lopsided triumph, and that feels accurate. Tocha examines it, turns it in his hands, then places it beside the others in the supply hut. No praise, no scolding, just placement, like it belongs. like you do. Later, while sitting around the fire, Nota tells you something. Basket weaving is like life here. You don't build it all at once. You coil, you circle, you adjust when it tightens wrong. You nod, you start with one rib, then build around it. She pauses. Your first rib was survival. Now you're adding more. You don't know what to say, so you say nothing. Just sit beside her, watching sparks rise into the night. And when you turn in for the evening, your hands still steady, grin from ribbed, sap your basket beside your bed. You realize, today wasn't about doing something important. It was about doing something completely ordinary, and still being part of everything. And that matters, because not every legacy is a story carved in stone. Some are woven in silence, loop by loop, one rib at a time. This morning, someone's crying, not loudly, just soft rhythmic sobs that carry across the still cool air, weaving between huts like smoke. You follow the sound instinctively, quietly, not to intrude, but because here, sorrow is never private. It's not paraded, but it's not hidden either. Grief is shared like water, passed hand to hand, mouth to mouth, in silence and touch. You find her near the grinding stones, old, wrinkled, eyes cloudy with time. Nota's aunt. You've seen her before, hunched over a loom, whispering to herself in a voice that sounded like wind against bark. She rarely speaks. Today she isn't speaking at all. Nota is beside her, just holding her hand. Eventually, you learn a tree has died. A tree, not even one close to the village, but one she planted many years ago, near the canyon rim, where it could catch the morning light and the late summer rains. She visited it every new moon. Now it's gone, struck by lightning, split and blackened. You don't laugh, not even inwardly, because now you understand. Things are not just things here. A tree is not just a tree. It's time, memory, ritual, witness. So the village does what it always does. It gathers. No announcements, no schedule, just people, slowly walking to the canyon rim, baskets of offerings in hand. You go to Tocheli. As usual, you reach the tree. What's left of it? A jagged trunk, split down the center, charred. Some of the roots still cling to the earth like fingers trying to hold on. Everyone sits. A few sing, a few hum. One woman scatters ground cornmeal in a circle. Then comes the telling. Each person who knew the tree shares a memory. One says it shaded her first kiss. Another says he once napped beneath it and dreamt of rain that tasted like honey. Nota says nothing, just places a piece of turquoise in the cracked bark. You want to say something, but your throat doesn't work. So instead you reach into your pouch and pull out the pigment stone from your solo gathering deck. The red one. You crush it in your palm, smear a line across the trunk. Tocha nods. That's enough. The old woman touches the charm, whispers something, and turns away. Back at the village, there's no feast, no song, just soft tasks. People cook gently, weave slowly.
Move as though the ground might bruise. You sit with Namata as she grinds sunflower seeds into paste. I never named a tree before, you say. She looks up. You don't have to. It remembers you. You look down at your hands, still faintly stained red from the tree's farewell. That night, the sky is cloudless. The stars are sharp. You lie on your mat, arms crossed, and think not about wars or history or heroic deeds. You think about a tree that stood on a cliff and watched a girl grow old, and now lies quiet, still part of the earth, still feeding the soil. And you hope, if you are very lucky, that someday you might live that way too, rooted, witnessed, grieved, and remembered. Today starts with smoke, not the warm breakfast kind that smells like roasted squash and burnt fingers. This smoke is bitter, sharp. It clings to your teeth. It wakes you before the light. You stumble outside, half dreaming, eyes watering, and see the source. It's not a fire. Not yet. It's a warning. Namata is already awake, already moving. She tosses you a bundle of reed-wrapped supplies and says, "Grab water." You don't ask questions anymore. You ask later. You help fill gourds. You help dampen cloths. You help move the children to the central shelter, the stone one near the grain bins that everyone quietly refers to as the belly. It's thick-walled and shaded, designed for this kind of day. Fire is part of the cycle here. Not apocalypse, not punishment, just rhythm. The dry season has stretched. Too many windless days, too much brittle underbrush, and now somewhere far across the hills, a lightning strike decided the world was too still. Teicho organizes the watchers. They climb the ridges with horns, blankets and clay pots filled with a paste that smothers flame. You're not one of them, yet, but you carry supplies to the hill base. You prepare, and wait, and worry. The village stays calm, but alert, like a lung holding its breath. By midday, the smoke thickens. The light turns strange, orange, gold, shadowy and sharp at the same time. Everyone walks a little faster, talks a little softer. Even Tema doesn't throw rocks at chickens today. Namata keeps glancing west. At one point she turns to you and says, "Fire is not evil." You nod, even though you don't fully understand. She continues, "It burns the old, the sick. It makes room, but it forgets how big it is sometimes." That makes more sense. Late afternoon the watchers return, faces blackened, clothes scorched at the edges, but smiling. "It turned," one says. "The canyon took it," says another. And just like that, the danger passes. The smoke lingers, but the panic does not. You help clean soot from pots, ash from doorways, sand from sleeping mats. Everyone's tired, but not afraid. That evening Tocha gathers the village around a small controlled fire, the safe kind. He says only one thing: "The land sent a messenger. We listened. That is enough." Then everyone adds a stick. You add yours too. It crackles. Bright. Brief. Gone. The fire becomes story. People talk about old burns. The great blaze from years ago that revealed a cave full of petroglyphs. The time a fire uncovered a buried cache of turquoise beads. The time Namata was 5 and tried to chase a fire with a bucket and got scolded so hard she didn't speak for a week. You laugh. So does she. But underneath it you feel the truth. This land is not tame. It never was. It never will be. But the people, they are fluent in chaos. They've made peace with heat. They know when to fight, and when to move aside and let the flame teach its lesson. You lie down that night still smelling like smoke. And for once it's not alarming. It's comforting. Proof you were near the edge, and came back. Still whole. Still here. Still learning how to live beside something that could erase you but didn't. Some lessons aren't taught. They're caught. Like a fever. Or a lie. Or in your case today, a bone infection. It starts with your foot. A dull ache in the arch. Like you stepped wrong. Then heat. Then swelling. Then suddenly you're limping like a cartoon pirate. While Namata raises an eyebrow and says, "You didn't step on that cactus again, did you?" You didn't. Probably. But by midday the pain is real. Sharp. Your foot is angry. Red. And puffed up like a gourd with attitude. So you're taken to the healer. Her name is Mecca. She's old. Older than the dirt under her hut. Probably. Her hands are gnarled like twisted roots. Her eyes 2 specks of flint. And she smells vaguely like dried lizard and burnt sage. You like her immediately. She says nothing at first. Just lifts your foot. Sniffs it. Sniffs it. And clicks her tongue. Hot inside. She says. Needs drawing. You expect herbs. You get a heated rock. Placed near the sole to encourage drainage. Followed by a mash of something purple that smells like foot rot and old onions. Then she wraps it in bark. Ties it tight with what looks suspiciously like a repurposed rabbit gut. And tells you to lie still. So you lie. And lie. And lie. 3 days pass. You're forbidden from walking. From weaving, from fetching water, from existing like a normal human. Namata brings you stew, Tema brings you gossip, Mecca brings you more foot mash. You bring nothing but complaints. But you watch, and something strange happens. You begin to notice the rhythm of things again, this time from a distance. You see how the water is gathered differently depending on the season. You see how each fire is lit with a slightly different arrangement of wood, triangle for heat, square for smoke, circle for long burns. You hear lullabies you never noticed before, songs meant to teach infants the phases of the moon. You overhear Namata whispering about someone's pregnancy. You catch Tocha checking the sky, murmuring, "Too few insects this week." The world is full of signs, and now you have time to see them. On day 4, the fever breaks. On day 5 the swelling shrinks. And on day 6 Mecca declares you half useful again. She gifts you a charm, a bone sliver with a hole drilled through it, tied on a reed cord. For remembering weakness, she says. Not to mock you, to remind you, even in the strongest bodies fragility lives. And that's okay. You limp back to your hut. Slowly, but proudly. Because this week you didn't gather, grind or build. You didn't teach or dance or carry water. You rested. And somehow that mattered just as much. Because healing is also a job here. Maybe the most sacred one. And tonight as you massage your scarred foot and listen to distant laughter, you smile. Because even when you were down you still belonged. And tomorrow, you'll walk again. Not faster, but wiser. You wake to not the soft kind that rustles leaves or carries kitchen smoke through the air. This wind howls. It moans across the canyon like it lost something important. It slams against the huts, rattles the bone charms hanging from doorways, pulls loose thatch from roofs like a bratty child tearing straw dolls. It's moving day. No, not leaving the village. Just shifting. Everything. Everyone. Because today the wind is reminding the village that nothing stays still forever. Not even stone. Namata pulls you by the arm before you've even finished blinking. We need to secure the granary. Of course you do. Because wind here isn't background. It's a force. And it's in charge. You brace the storage hut with thick beams. You help weight the roof with heavy flat stones. You tie ropes around bundles of maize and hope the knots hold. Every gust shakes your spine like a and then comes the dust. It hits like a sand-blasted secret. Your eyes sting. Your teeth crunch. Your ears fill with whispers made of grit. Inside your shirt. Somehow dust. Inside your soul. Probably also dust. You work until your arms feel like boiled corn husks. Until your neck creaks every time you turn. Until even Tocha says, "That's enough for now." You huddle in the central shelter. Everyone does. Children crawl under woven mats. Elders mutter stories to distract themselves. The fire barely holds, crackling in protest every time the wind hisses down the chimney. And then Namata taps your knee. She whispers, "Want to see something?" You nod, instantly suspicious. She hands you a tiny bowl, half filled with red ochre powder. Then she lights a small stick of dried sage and waits for it to smolder. Watch. She waves the stick gently over the bowl, stirs the ochre with her finger, and holds it up toward the shelter's crack in the wall. The wind catches the powder. It swirls. It dances. It lifts. Not chaotically, but in a spiral. A tight, perfect spiral. Like the one you carved into your totem. Namata watches you watching it. You think wind only destroys, she says softly, but it teaches shape. Later when the storm weakens, people emerge blinking like moles. The village is dusted in beige, but not broken. You help sweep roofs, retrieve scattered baskets, rehang charms. Everyone works quietly, but there's no fear. They've done this before. They'll do it again. The wind is not new. Only you are. And now you're not even that new anymore. Because now when the wind blows you move with it. That night, the stars return.
And you sit on the roof of your hut, brushing dust from your arms, smiling into the breeze. You're not thinking about leaving anymore, not even wondering how long you'll stay. You're just here. Now, wind-kissed, dust-streaked, wiser than yesterday, and a little more shaped. Your first clue is the silence. Not peaceful silence, unnatural silence. No birds, no insects, no distant thump of grinding stones or low chatter of morning chores. Just stillness. Then a low hum begins. You step outside. Everyone else does too. Eyes squinting, heads tilting. Then you see it. A cloud. Not of smoke, not of storm, but wings. Locusts. Thousands. Maybe more. Rolling across the horizon like living sand. Namata mutters a word you don't know. Tocha grabs a clay rattle and starts shaking it furiously. Go, he shouts. Cover the fields. And suddenly it's chaos. But controlled chaos. Blankets are flung over crops. Smoke pots are lit to haze the air. People bang sticks, shout, wave their arms in desperate dances meant to confuse the swarm. You join in. You don't ask how. You just do. Run to the maize fields, grab one end of a tarp, help a girl you've never spoken to before, haul it over the young stalks. You shout. You stomp. You cry a little when they land anyway. Wings flick your cheeks. Legs scratch your skin. The air turns thick with the smell of crushed chitin. But you keep going. Because everyone is. And stopping means losing everything. Namata is in the beans, shrieking like a banshee, swinging a wet cloth above her head like a holy curse. Even Tema has stopped complaining. He's knee-deep in dust, flapping a piece of hide so violently he looks like he's trying to take flight himself. Then, like all swarms, they go. As suddenly as they came. The noise fades. The air clears. The fields are still. And you look around. Devastation. Not complete, but not gentle. Tocha counts the loss aloud. Half the maize. A third of the beans. Squash patch untouched. Good omen. He doesn't mourn. He calculates. That's how it's done here. Grief is for later. Survival is for now. You help rake the dead insects into piles. Some are burned. Others kept. For food. Yes. Locusts. Fried. Oiled. Chewy. You try one. Regret it. But also understand it. That night, there's a small meal. What little can be spared. The elders tell stories of worse swarms, of entire seasons stolen, of people surviving on nothing but bugs and boiled grass. You realize something. This isn't tragedy. It's Tuesday. And resilience isn't built through inspiration. It's built through repetition. Tomorrow they'll plant again. Even if it's late in the season. Even if the ground groans. Even if it doesn't make sense. Because that's what they do. And now, that's what you do. Namata hands you a calabash bowl, filled with mashed roots. You survived your first swarm, she says, grinning. You raise an eyebrow. Barely. She taps your chest. Still counts. You eat. You exhale. And in the quiet that follows you realize. You're not waiting to be rescued anymore. You're just here. Living like they live. Fighting like they fight. Falling into the rhythm of a place that doesn't flinch when the sky turns dark. And that feels like a kind of victory. It begins with drums. Not warning drums. Not mourning drums. Celebration drums. Fast. Playful. Irregular. Like the heartbeat of a prankster. Namata's already outside when you crawl from your mat bleary-eyed and footsore. She's wearing, well, less than usual. Her face is painted in swirling lines of blue and white, and her hair is threaded with tiny bells that jingle when she grins. Today, she says, you dance. You squint. Why? Because it's full day. Apparently every season, if the harvest was decent, the spirits weren't offended, and no one's hut collapsed from termites. The village devotes a day to nonsense. They flip roles. Children act like elders. Elders act like squirrels. Fishermen pretend to be warriors. Warriors pretend to be chickens. Tocha wears moccasins on his hands. Tema makes a fake headdress out of gourd rinds and appoints himself king of crushed tomatoes. Everyone laughs. You try to resist at first. You claim your foot still hurts. You say your spirit animal doesn't approve of jesters. Namata just shoves a painted mask into your chest and says, "That's exactly why you need to dance." You give in. The mask is made of dried cactus pad, carved crudely to resemble a grinning coyote. You slip it over your face and somehow, the ridiculousness feels freeing. You're told to lead the goat parade. There are no goats. You parade anyway. By midday your stomach aches from laughing. You've watched the stoic pottery maker perform an interpretive dance about ants. You've seen Mika the healer wrap herself in onion skins and declare herself queen of scented nightmares. Even Tocha cracks a smile when a child ties 4 fish bones to his braids and calls him windy hair. And through it all, there's rhythm, drums, clapping, feet stomping dust into joy. Namata grabs your hand and spits you until your mask slips and you fall into a pile of reed. She doesn't help you up. She just throws a pine cone at your chest and yells your punishment is pine cone court. You don't know what that is. No one explains. But everyone cheers. And it doesn't matter. Because by now, you get it. This day isn't about escape. It's about remembering that laughter is a tool just like the bow or the firestone. That joy, here, is as sacred as silence. That foolishness is how people survive the things they can't understand. And for one day, even fear takes a holiday. That night you sit by the fire, cheeks sore, legs bruised, heart light. Namata leans against your shoulder. "Not bad for your first full day," she says. You nod. "I made a great goat." "You were terrible," she says. "But brave." You watch the flames and think bravery doesn't always rule. Sometimes it wears a cactus mask and leads a pretend goat parade through a village on the edge of forever. And tomorrow, you'll be serious again. But tonight, you laugh. Hard, long, free. Because in Arizona's forgotten time, when dust ruled and spirits whispered, even the wise knew, sometimes the only way to stay sane was to go completely gloriously foolish. Tonight you dream of feathers. Not birds. Not flight. Feathers tied in bundle, hung above doorways, pressed into bundles with ash and salt. Namata says it's no coincidence. She tells you tomorrow is the naming. You blink. The what? She grins. You didn't think you could live here this long and stay nameless, did you? You want to argue. Say your name is your name. Say you've had it forever. But something stops you. Because, who you were before. They wouldn't have eaten locusts. Wouldn't have worn a cactus mask. Wouldn't have learned to weave dust into baskets. So maybe this isn't about changing who you are. Maybe it's about marking who you've become. The naming isn't public. It's not shouted over drums or carved into stone. It's quiet. At dusk, Tocha, Namata, Mika, and a few others lead you to the canyon's edge. No words. Just wind. And smoke. They draw symbols on your chest with red and white clay. One for fire. One for Chen. They hand you a strip of soft leather with a single hawk feather stitched to the end. Speak something, Tocha says. That belongs only to now. You hesitate. Then speak. You say a word. Your word. Not your old name. Not your modern name. Something earned. Something small and strange and soft like the wind right before dawn. Tocha nods. Namata smiles. And the canyon accepts it. You tuck the leather strip into your pouch. It stays there, warm from your skin. Later in the village, no one treats you differently. But everyone knows. Tema bumps you on purpose and says nice feather dust face. You bump him back harder. Mika gives you a withered smile and mutters about time. You spend that night watching the stars from the roof again. They feel closer somehow, as if the world has taken a step toward you. And for the first time since arriving in this forgotten sliver of history, you don't feel like a visitor, or an intruder. You feel like someone whose name belongs here. Someone who knows what smoke means, what silence holds, what wind can shake. And tomorrow, you'll be expected to rise early, to haul wood, to re-thatch a roof, To hunt, maybe. Because having a name here doesn't make you special. It makes you responsible. But that's okay. Because now, you're not afraid of the work. You're not afraid of failing. You're not afraid of the dust. Because the dust has named you too. And you finally answered back. You're woken by a tap on your, not soft, not polite, but get up or I'll start singing kind of tap. It's Tema. Come on, he whispers. We're going to the cliff. You mumble something about sleep being sacred. He ignores it. You've seen the canyon from above, ever seen it from inside. Now you're aware, because the canyon has always been there. Massive red patient, a distant backdrop, a place of echoes and smoke trail. But no one talks much about going down. You pack light, water, a little dried and the hawk feather strip Namata braided into your belt. Tama brings a bow, and a smug grin. Namata doesn't cut. Someone needs to make sure you two come back, she says. Then mutters, idiots. You walk for hours, not the gentle kind of walk. The my cars are negotiating a union kind. Loose rocks, switchbacks, heat rising from below in slow suffocating wind. The descent is ancient, etched into stone by generations of careful feet and sudden storm. Handholds worn smooth, markings left behind in ochre and charcoal. Symbols, faces, wolves with two heads, birds with no eyes. You pause at one. Tema says, they say if you stare at that one long enough you forget what came. You stare, just in case. At the base of the canyon everything changes. It's cooler, greener, quiet, not silent. The wind doesn't howl here. It murmurs. You find pools of still water, tucked between boulders like secrets. Fish dart, insect skin. A lizard watches you as if you owe it money. You camp beside one of the pools. Tema tells a story of a man who came into the canyon to bury his regrets, and never came out. Not because he died, because he stayed. Built a house from stone in silence, married the wind, raised children with names that echoed. You ask if it's true. Tema shrugs. Doesn't matter. That night you both fall asleep under a sky that doesn't look the same. Closer, bigger, hung lower, like it wants to listen. In the morning you find a shard of pottery half buried in the dirt, painted with spiral. You hold it like a memory, like a warning, or a promise. You start the climb back with legs that scream and a heart that's quieter than it used to be. Halfway up, Tema turns and says, you're not just visiting anymore, are you? You pause, then shake your head, because something in that canyon took part of you, and gave you something else in return. Not knowledge, not just perspective. The kind you only get when you climb down into the belly of the world and survive it. By the time you reach the village, the sky is turning peach. Smoke from cook fires spirals like offerings. Namata sees you and rolls her eyes, but she's smiling. You drop the pottery shard into her pot. She turns it over. Noms, you're late, she says. You grin. Was busy marrying the wind. She snorts, but she keeps the shard, places it near the fire, like it belongs, like you do. You don't know it yet, but today is your last day. Not because you die, not because the canyon swallows you or a scorpion wins a surprise duel, but because the story has to end somewhere. And here, this is the place. You wake to calm. No wind, no drums, no crisis, just birds. You haven't heard birds in a while. You wonder if they were always this low. You wonder if they're trying to tell you something. You spend the morning weaving with Namata, not because she needs help, but because you can. Your fingers move without thinking. Over, under, twist. She doesn't correct you anymore. Midday Tocha asks you to help with the lookout post. You climb the ridge, not out of obligation, just habit. Your legs find the footholds like old friends. You see the desert stretch out below, same as always, but you don't feel small this time. You feel woven into it. A thread, not the whole blanket, but part of it. Later the children ask you for a story. You tell them one, about a place with cars and glass, and glowing boxes that whisper lies and half-truths. They love. Tema asks if the metal wagons really float on wheels. You nod, then pause, and says, but they don't go anywhere worth going. Everyone goes quiet. Mecca brings you a small bottle of pudding after dinner. This is for staying, she says. Then even when you didn't have to, you want to argue. Say you didn't have a choice. But you did. And she knows that. That night you sit with Namata on the rooftop. The stars are all friends now. You point out the ones you know. She points out the ones she knows. They don't match. That feels right. At some point, you fall asleep beside her. No dreams. Just the soft hush of wind moving through thatch. Just the faint smell of firewood and scent. Just quiet. And in that quiet a thought. You did last a day here. You lasted many. And the world didn't end. It opened. You laugh softly. In your sleep. The desert doesn't care that you're leaving. It doesn't mark your exit. But somewhere, a tree bends slightly. A hawk circles twice. And in the dust near your door, someone falls. Tiny feather. Still tied to a strip of warm leather. Still warm. Still warm. Still whispering. You made it to the end of a place that never asked you to arrive. But let you stay in. Let that settle. Let it soften the corners of your thoughts. Because somewhere beneath the heat, the dust and the silence of Arizona, as Arizona's ancient heart, something in you shifted. You were tested by fire, by time itself, and you weren't always graceful. But you kept waking up. You learned the names of things that don't speak. You learned that survival isn't heroic. It's habit. It's tying knots and grinding seams, and finding laughter even when the sky's filled with wind. So now, imagine your breath, moving like that canyon. Wings, slow, curving around stone. Steady. Let the tension drain from your arm. Let your legs grow heavy. Let your eyes flutter like a sun-warmed curtain in the afternoon breeze. And just rest, because you don't have to prove anything. Not here, not now. The story is told, the fire is lit, the dust has settled, and you've made it through a time you were never meant to survive. But you did, sleepy, easy, now. And if the wind speaks your name in the night, smile. It's just saying thank you.